following program is distributed by the Bears Barroom Radio Network. It's intended for all audiences. Draft on Tap with Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski.
Welcome to Draft on Tap. I am Aldo Gandia, and Niel and Danny will join me briefly. But I just want to say first, if you are like me, hopefully you've had the time to binge on the Senior Bowl stuff that's been on the NFL Network. And actually, I just learned from one of the guys that on ESPNU has been serving up lots of Senior Bowl material. So that is pretty cool. Just a quick rundown on what we're going to discuss on today's show is, of course, we got to start with the Chicago Bears and the quarterback talk and the fact that Deshaun Watson has officially requested a trade. So we'll get thoughts from Danny and Niel about the possibility of acquiring a Deshaun Watson and what that will take. And of course, there's some other veteran quarterbacks that I want to discuss with them. We'll also talk to Danny and Niel about their updated quarterback board. Where are they targeting certain quarterbacks in what round? And then we'll move to interior offensive linemen, something that we promised you a couple of shows ago, but we've had so many things to talk about. We just kept pushing it back, and we're going to detail that today. And then we're going to end up the show talking about some of the Senior Bowl standouts that we've detected throughout this week's practice period. And then remind you also that on Sunday, beginning of Saturday, on Sunday, Danny, Niel, myself, and maybe some guests will join us here at 3 p.m. Central to discuss the game in detail and talk about some of the players that might really work out for the Chicago Bears. So here is Danny Shimon. Here is Niel Stopczynski. Gentlemen, how are you? Starting with you, Danny Shimon.
I'm doing great. The weather outside is freezing, but the football talk is heating up. And that's keeping me warm, man. We're talking about Senior Bowl prospects. We're talking about trade rumors. We're talking about quarterbacks requesting trades. It's a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Niel, how are you doing, buddy?
Man, I've been awesome. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year, boys. And, Danny, stop talking about that weather, man. It's a beautiful day outside. Bright blue, sunny skies. Come on. Let's go. Also, we're in green today, the color of money. That's been the theme of the past 24 hours. It's going to be the theme the entire offseason. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, let's do this. Let's begin with all of this Deshaun Watson talk. And it flooded social media today. Ian Rappaport and others have reported that Deshaun Watson had actually officially requested a trade. In fact, I've got a clip. Let's listen to Ian Rappaport talk about it on the NFL Network earlier today.
No deal can happen without him providing written notice that he would be okay with the trade. In other words, he controls a lot of this, especially where he goes. Then, of course, guys, the question is, if the Houston Texans, who've shown no willingness to trade him, but if they decide they're willing to listen to offers, where could he go? A lot of places. I would say the New York Jets would be theoretically a possibility. The Dolphins, of course, would be right up there. Don't sleep on the Carolina Panthers. They are a team, I'm told, that is going to be aggressive in potentially acquiring Deshaun Watson. You also have the Bears. Hard to imagine the Colts would get it because they're in the same division, but crazier things have happened. Probably not. Everyone should want Deshaun Watson, unless if your name is like maybe the Chiefs or a couple other teams.
Niel, reports are that the Chicago Bears' Ryan Pace is going to be aggressive in his pursuit of Deshaun Watson. So the question for you is, how aggressive should he be?
It's been my understanding that the official inquiry has already been made into what it will take to get Deshaun Watson up to Chicago. I have firmly believed that ever since the beginning, when this whole thing blew up, was it about a month ago or so, that it was going to take a ton of draft capital, a ton of resources, a ton of assets to be able to go ahead and get this guy here. Now, I don't really know what that asking price is. I don't have that kind of intel into the situation, but they're going to have to give up a lot, and it's just a matter of, do they have the willingness to be able to unload everything they're going to be able to unload. And I think me and Danny have been pretty straightforward since the very beginning, since show one, that Deshaun Watson was our guy in that particular draft class. And I also know that Mike North, of all people, has been continuously pounding the table about how Mitch Trubisky beat Deshaun Watson earlier this year by 29 points. But Hey, I think the general theme of the fan base has been for the past 2 seasons is like it's time to move on, and so it's a matter of what do we have to do to get the kid, what kind of capital we have to surrender, what kind of assets do we have to release. Where do you feel on that, Danny? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that Ryan Pace is, and that I think the reports are true. Ryan Pace is going to be as aggressive as he possibly can be to try and right or wrong he did by bypassing Deshaun Watson 3-4 years ago and taking Trubisky. But the unfortunate part is if we'll go back to the report by Rappaport, the three teams, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Panthers, they all have top 10 picks to offer back in return. The Bears have the 20th pick. All three, well, except for the Panthers, they have young quarterbacks they can give back. The Texans, if they want to go ahead and do that as well, the number 2 pick, then the Texans can go ahead and pick their own quarterback. So, all those deals are going to be more enticing and more attractive to the Texans if and when they decide to trade Deshaun Watson. That's why I think I would love to have Deshaun Watson running around in Chicago wearing a number 4 here. I just don't, unfortunately, think I don't care if Ryan Pace gives up his next 3, first round picks, next 3 second round picks. If the Dolphins or if the Jets or one of those teams in the top 10 that have much more attractive, lucrative draft capital and some young assets want Deshaun Watson, their offers are going to be better than the Bears. And then what everybody says, the Texans don't want to trade him within the AFC conference. All right, well, the Panthers can give them, whether it's the 8th pick, 2 number 1s, or whatever the package you want to come up with some young players as well on the roster that's going to be more attractive to a team like the Texans are going to be going into full rebuild mode.
Right. About an hour before showtime here, I asked the Barroom followers on Twitter, if the Bears could trade 3 first-round draft picks and a second-rounder for Deshaun Watson, would you do it? 73% said absolutely yes. 26% said no. And a lot of those yes people, there was like 30, 40 comments. A lot of those yes people were like, absolutely, you'd be dumb not to do this. You should, you should even give up more, those people said. And then some of the people who said no, saying you're absolutely wrong to trade away all of these assets. And frankly, I'm with those people who say no. I would not trade the future of this franchise for Deshaun Watson. You look at what Deshaun Watson did with the Texans this year. How many games did they win? And they had a premier left tackle. Yeah, I know there were lots of other parts missing, but you can make the same case for the Chicago Bears. And what parts are they going to accumulate if they get rid of future first rounders, second rounders? Some people were saying, I would trade even more. What are you doing? You're going to trade away the whole farm for a quarterback? He's going to be miserable here. You're going to have to build a team through free agency, and he's already eating up quite a bit of money. So unless you can package some of the salary you already have on the team and some draft picks, and to Danny's point, other teams are going to offer a quarterback, which is what the Texans are going to need. And you're going to need Deshaun Watson saying, I want to go to the Chicago Bears. That's where I want to go. And what is the likelihood of that? Right. So my message to everybody is it's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I would love for Deshaun Watson to play for the Chicago Bears, but I'm not going to give away 3, 4 number 1 draft picks and then second and third round picks and potentially players, which is what they'll be looking at, because what are we going to offer? Nick Foles? Yeah, the Texans would love Nick Foles. No, it's not going to happen, guys.
Right, and that's a perfect word to use, pipe dream. I would love to have Watson here, like I said, playing for the Bears, but again, I don't think the Bears can offer anything. And I saw a package circling around, the Bears offering this year's 1st and 2, next year's 1st and 3, and all different kinds of combinations. But again, that's not enough to entice the Texans, I don't believe, because I think those other teams are going to give them better deals. The other thing is, you made a great point there, Aldo, is Deshaun Watson's salary. The Bears are about roughly around 10 or 15, or is it 14 million now, under the projected salary cap for next year. You got to clear out space. So you got to cut players, whether it's, pick a name here. Kyle Fuller's making $20 million next year. I mean, I know there's always ways you can work around the salary cap. Sure. You can renegotiate contracts, extend contracts. But again, now what you're doing is you're paying, taking away from the future. You're taking away your picks. You're extending guys who are older with big contracts to more guaranteed money so they can make room under the salary cap. You're just drowning yourself here in terms of your future growth and potential. But hey, Ryan Pace is in a win now, mode. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does give up the farm to try and get Deshaun Watson. But like I said, Aldo, I think it's a pipe dream, and I'm just not. Even though I'd be excited to have him here as a Bears quarterback, I'm just not getting my hopes up.
Here's the other thing too is that what's becoming really dangerous is that this is becoming a little bit of a hype machine as well. And you don't want this fan base becoming even more disappointed than they already are with the quarterback position if they don't get, when they don't get Deshaun Watson, the guy that they are now sort of starting to show that they want.
Right.
I think that, I think us as media people need to be doing a better job of tempering this audience just a little bit and making them realize that, hey, this is a really unique situation where there's going to be a lot of different moving pieces that are going to need to go into him landing in Chicago, playing in the Windy City. Mm-hmm. This isn't going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next month. And it probably won't happen at all, honestly. But, there's a lot of things that are going to go into this that, make this a really slim chance of actually happening.
Absolutely. I put together some highlights of Deshaun Watson's play in 2020. And in that Packers game, he's behind 21-0, and he's still looking for his first touchdown. And this is it here in the third quarter. So I don't agree with Mike North. Oh, he lost against the Bears. And so what does that prove? Mitch Trubisky is better. That's ridiculous. But when you factor in how he played against NFC North teams, this score 35-13 when he gets his second touchdown there, that doesn't tell me, trade away 3-4 first rounders to get this guy. Look at the interception he throws here against the Steelers. This is the kind of stuff that we've been on Mitch Trubisky. Now, I know he's 10 times better than Mitch Trubisky. I know that he is playing without any offensive weapons. I know he was unhappy there. So I account for that, but I am not going to trade away the entire future of this team. You build a team first and foremost through draft picks. And you can't, if Ryan Pace were to make all those trades, I would be so disappointed in him. He is basically saying, I screwed up this team because I didn't pick Watson and Mahomes. So I am going to make up for that mistake by mortgaging the entire future of this franchise. And I probably won't be here in a couple of years, to pay the price, because there's no way he's going to put together a winning team if he doesn't have those assets. And then the salary cap, you just can't bring in the free agents, like Danny said. So it's not going to happen.
And all of that, Watson's going to have to agree to come to Chicago. Right. And like you said, will he want to come to a team that bypassed him for Trubisky?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Well, I'm curious is what is so egregious that has happened within that Houston organization where Deshaun Watson has said, I want out of here.
Yeah. There's some guy there, an Easter bee or something, that he made promises to him that he hasn't kept. Deshaun, to his credit, he wants a say in how the organization is running. Like what is happening in the NBA, he wants some power. I want to play for a coach that I like. I want to play for players that I want to be around and so forth. So he's asking for that. And the mistake that the Texans made is they said yes, but they didn't. And so that's what has gotten him unhappy. They should have said to him, like they should have said to a lot of NBA players, hey, we run the organization. We'll gladly listen to your input, but don't be upset at us if we're not going to follow your advice. We're paid to make these decisions, and you're paid to go out there and win championships for us. So, but Deshaun was given a promise that wasn't kept, and so now it's this big mess. Now, one other important thing about all these reports today about Deshaun Watson asking for a trade is that he made that request before the announcement of the new head coach, Cully. Cully worked with Watson at the Pro Bowl last year, and the reports are is that they got along really, really well. Cully has worked with quarterbacks with the Ravens and so forth. They apparently really hit it off. So this coaching hire by Nick Cicero, the new Texans general manager, is made with the plan that this new coach is going to talk to Deshaun Watson and say, hey, man, we really hit it off at the Pro Bowl. So let's do this again. Let's let bygones be bygones. Don't worry about the organization. I'll buffer you from that. Let's build a winner and let's win championships. You got a contract here. You've got friends here. You're building your foundation here and so forth. So I'm not necessarily totally bought into the fact that Deshaun Watson is going to be traded. I think the Texans, by the hiring of this coach, was their last-ditch effort to try to keep Watson in Texas.
Interesting how that news came out today of all times, isn't it, Aldo?
Yeah, that's right. Very interesting. Good point.
It's always interesting when and how the smoke leaks, isn't it, boys?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a little bizarre thing.
So you're saying Watson's people leaked it because they wanted to know that it doesn't matter what the coach is, or I'm not following your logic there.
I'm just saying it's really interesting. I don't know what's behind it, to be honest with you. I just think it's really interesting how, this day you have the coach hired. Next day you have it leaks that Deshaun Watson wants out. He officially asked to be out. I just think it's really interesting that it's bizarre, the timing, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that perhaps it could be one of several things. For instance, it could be Deshaun's agent leaking it out saying, hey, I don't care who they hired. Deshaun asked for a trade days ago. And so it's official. It's out there. He wants teams to make offers for him. Or it could be the Texans who have leaked that out saying, hey, despite the fact that we got this coach to try to win Deshaun back to the fold, keep sending the offers, and they want to build up the trade value for Deshaun Watson. So it could be one of any of a number of things. It's, this is always that time of the year. I mean, I've learned over the years, you never believe anybody in the NFL, but especially after the regular season is over, you don't believe anything at all. Nobody has got it right. There's rumors, there's agents planting rumors, there's general managers and team officials planting misinformation, providing no information. There's the media making up their own bullshit. So don't believe anything. If anything, I believe Danny and Niel are two of the top draft analyzers and talent appraisers out there. So I want to talk to you about Matt Stafford. What about Matt Stafford? He's available. He would come in a much lower price. And apparently there's a report that only about 10 teams have inquired about Matt Stafford. Hopefully the Chicago Bears have. And potentially it could be as little as a first rounder for Matt Stafford. Danny, your thoughts first on the possibility of acquiring Matt Stafford.
Again, I think it's a pipe dream, mainly because I don't think Detroit will trade him within the division and face him twice a season. The other thing is with Matt Stafford, I believe his salary is in that, if not 20 million, near that 20 million range. Or again, we're talking about the same things in terms of salary cap, maneuvering the salary cap. But guys, like Matt Stafford is a good quarterback. Of course, he'd be an upgrade here in Chicago, but he's not a guy that I'm really that high on. I mean, he's got the great arm. But he hasn't really won. And again, I know he plays for Detroit, but he's never a guy that's, come through in the clutch moments, at least from what I've seen of him. Would it be an upgrade? Yeah, no doubt. Upgrade to what they have right now. But again, I don't know about you, Niel, but I think I'd rather take a chance at getting one of these quarterbacks in the first round than go for a Matt Stafford. I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I'm right there with you. I want to take a shot at some fresh meat. I want to take a shot at a kid that's hungry. I want to take a shot at a kid that's not disgruntled, right? Because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Matt Stafford's had the better part of how long has he been in Detroit? Over a decade?
9 or 10 years, I believe.
Yeah, he's been there for the better part of a decade, and they haven't been able to put it together or with him or around him. And let's not pretend like he hasn't had pieces. Let's not pretend that he hasn't had linemen and tailbacks and Megatron and pieces around him to be able to, win football games, and they have not been able to get it done with Matt Stafford. And again, like Danny said, he's definitely 100% an upgrade over what we have in that room right now. But is he the answer? It's hard for me to wrap my brain around that. I would rather take a chance on one of these, 5 first-round quarterbacks that we're going to talk about here in a little bit and try to, see what we can do with bringing a kid in that's hungry and ready to get, something done in Chicago that hasn't been done in about 30 years.
So the one thing I heard about Stafford too is the word around Mobile, last couple of days is Stafford to the 49ers is gaining some momentum. Now, if it's going to happen, who knows? But that's like what they're talking about down in Mobile right now.
Mm-hmm. I got to tell you this. My feeling on Stafford is if it's just going to take a first rounder, and I got a feeling it's going to take more than that, but I would try to negotiate this year's first rounder and then let them take our, trade. We trade a second for their third. So we'd have 2/3. I would try to make a deal like that because I feel this guy still has a great arm. He's improved his mechanics so much since he came from college. And Greg Gabriel, by the way, agrees with the two of you guys. He's not a big fan of Matt Stafford. He doesn't feel he's a winner and so forth. But I have seen this guy make so many fourth quarter comebacks. And then people come back, well, the reason they're trailing in the fourth quarter is because of Matt Stafford. But I don't totally buy that. They have had a horrendous offensive line in Detroit for the better part of his stay there. In fact, I would say all of his years in Detroit have been terrible. He probably had his best offensive line this year. They've made some good acquisitions to help him with pocket protection, but they have not had. Name me a running back that they've had who has played well over the last 10 years. You can't. The best chance they got at a good running back is the kid they drafted last year from Ohio State. I'm forgetting his name, but you guys, I'm sure, will remember.
Georgia Swift.
Or Swift, yeah.
Swift, exactly. So now, has he had good receivers? He's had the great Megatron. There is no doubt. And Megatron and coming back from fourth quarter has really helped his stats a lot. So you got to factor that in. But he hasn't had Megatron for the last 3-4 years, and his yardage total has not dipped at all. I just feel like there is something about this guy that he could potentially be a short-term answer. And by short-term, I mean 3 to 4 years for the rest of his contract. And then you draft your quarterback next season or the season afterwards, a first rounder, second rounder, and you go there. I think he would be a really strong bridge quarterback to your franchise quarterback that you need to draft. I hope that at least Ryan Pace has Stafford in the equation and they're thinking about it and they're saying, well, if we can't move up to 20, which it looks like we probably can't, should we pursue Stafford? They've got to be talking about it in earnest over there.
See, for me, like with all these veteran names that are going to be supposedly rumored to be available, I still, and I could be in a minority here, but I'm still more higher on these first-round quarterbacks than I am on any of these veteran names that are being tossed about here. Whether you're talking about a Matt Ryan, you're talking about Sam Darnold, you're talking about Stafford, the other Garoppolo, all these other guys. I would much rather go with my young quarterback and build that way. Now, that's me. Right, with the Bears, with Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, right now it's a Titanic over there, and coaches are leaving left and right, jumping off ship. If you ever see the movie The Titanic with DiCaprio, where the boat's going down and the band's there playing, Pace and Nagy are the band right now. They're just playing. Everyone's leaving, jumping ship. But they're going to try and bring in a guy, probably a veteran that they can feel they can win with next season and save their job. So that's the unfortunate part. I think that's where like some of the people who are wanting to clean house have a good point. You got to start fresh and you get your quarterback and build there. Some of the people who wanted to keep Nagy and Pace, have a good point too, because you want to try and win. They've had some success in the past, so it's a tough call, but. For me personally, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'd rather go with the first-round quarterback in this class.
100%. Nothing else to say.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys there. I'm totally with you that's my preferred route is to draft a quarterback in round one, figure out, first of all, who could potentially drop to number 20. And is that those guys or that guy that you're targeting, those guys that you're targeting, can they drop to 20? And then if you say to yourself, well, there's no way. There's no way, let's say, Trey Lance is the bottom of our round one quarterback tier for first round. There's no way he's going to drop to number one, whoever the quarterback is. Then you start thinking about trade scenarios. And you already are calling teams up and saying, listen, if this happens, that happens, would you be interested in this deal and so forth? And so you start working on that. Now, if you don't have a high level of comfort that you can walk away with a first round quarterback in this draft, then you've got to look at some of these guys. Steven asked a question. What about Gardner Minshew? Is he a good stopgap for a year or two?
We just need to stop talking about stopgaps. That's all Stafford's going to be. That's all Gardner Minshew is going to be. Is just going to be stopgaps. We're going to stop talking about stopgaps.
Danny froze.
Jacksonville.
Go ahead. Say that again, Danny. You froze momentarily.
I said Glennon started over Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville this season.
Right.
No, the reason that happened is because they were tanking. That's the reason. Gardner would have given them a better chance to win, and they were tanking for Trevor. So I don't buy that. I don't potentially. If Gardner Minshew came to the Bears for a 1 year, 2 year, but you still are drafting your first round quarterback, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Would you rather have Gardner Minshew or Mitch Trubisky for a year?
Yeah, I would say Mitch probably, right. But I don't think. But I would advise Mitch to go elsewhere. As a friend to a friend, I would say, listen, there's just so much scar tissue going on here between our relationship. It's gonna hurt. Can you really trust Matt Nagy? Kind of thing. It's probably not a good thing.
Or why Minshew? Why has to go get the guy Fitzpatrick for 1 year?
I would go there.
We know he's great at mentoring young quarterbacks. You get your young quarterback, you bring Fitzpatrick in. Now, this is all fantasy because we know Nick Foles has got a contract that's immovable, right? Mm-hmm. So he's pretty much here as your bridge quarterback if you go get a first round, young kid. But if we're talking fantasy here, Fitzpatrick comes in, he's a guy that has got the hot and cold streak, but when he's hot, he's damn hot. And he's a good mentor to the young quarterback. And if you bring in a kid like Trey Lance, who obviously, only 1 year starter, terrific athlete, a guy who's got all the skill set that you will look for in today's NFL quarterback. And he's a guy that needs some time, probably, especially at not playing last season because of COVID concerns and his league canceling all of football. He sits back, he learns from Fitzmagic, and then all of a sudden, if he starts, do a little Tua thing there, you bring him in for a series here and there, get his feet wet. Next thing you know, if Trey Lance is the guy you're talking about here, but something like that would work too, But I'd rather go with that approach than go with giving up draft capital for guys like Stafford and Ryan and big contracts, guys who have failed in other places. Now I know Matt Ryan's won an MVP, but again, I think he's seen the best. His best days are behind him, not in front of him. So, those kind of moves just scream saving my ass kind of move by Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. And I just want to go get one of these young quarterbacks in the first round.
Toro makes a good point. And by the way, beautiful picture of the family there. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It says, wouldn't you think we would need a stopgap player anyway if you manage to get a quarterback at 20? And perhaps that guy is already on the roster. Right. I at the closing press conference, Pace and Nagy said they still have to do a lot of year-end evaluation about Nick Foles. Did he have those terrible games? Because that was the absolute nadir of the offensive line play. There were injuries. They were throwing people in different combinations. They couldn't quite figure it out. And then at the time where they did figure it out was after the break, and they inserted Trubisky back in because Foles was injured. So I got a feeling, and I'm not sure I agree with them, I got a feeling that they still have some confidence in Nick Foles because they didn't see Foles with an offensive line that was healthy.
Right. I agree. And I think that press conference, that 90-minute, learn nothing press conference, other than that they play well together. They had more praise for Nick Foles in that press conference than they had about Trubisky. In that press conference there. So that tells you what. It tells you a lot. And I think if there is a bridge quarterback, I think it will be Nick Foles. Like you said, Aldo, I think with that offensive line, with the hopefully rebuild better offensive line, and the continued improvement of David Montgomery in the running game, you bring it back to Tariq Cohen, gives you another option from the backfield. You add hopefully some weapons to the outside. And I think you give Nick Foles a better shot at maybe hopefully doing something. All along, you have your first round quarterback on the bench there, learning from another guy, Nick Foles, who's known around the league as a good veteran quarterback, a guy that'll help take a young kid under his wing and tutor him if he needs to.
Let's be honest, guys. You take a guy in the first round, you're taking him to be the guy. There is no bridge gaps at that point. Maybe,
but would you start a Trey Lance right away, Neil? Would you start a Trey Lance right away, week one? I mean, the guy's coming off of 1 year starter, didn't play last year, and those are the kind of guys. Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones could come in and potentially learn your system and be a starter from day one. Trevor Lawrence, same thing. Justin Fields, probably the same thing, and Zach Wilson. But a guy like Trey Lance, the example Aldo used here, would you be comfortable bringing him in and just starting him off after just starting 1 year, not playing last year?
If he's that special, I wouldn't have a problem with getting him baptized by fire, man. To be honest with you, so some of the great quarterbacks we've had this past decade were baptized by fire. If he's that special, then he better be ready to go.
But you can also ruin a young quarterback too if he's not ready.
Do what now?
You can also ruin a young quarterback if he's not ready.
True.
To me, the response to that should be, you got to have the rookie mini camp. You've got to have all the OTAs. You got to see how he responds on the practice field prior to even preseason, because if he looks terrible in the OTAs, he's just not getting the playbook for some reason. You can tell this guy's going to need some time on the bench just to fucking learn how to call a huddle together, then, excuse me for swearing, by the way, then you probably then have to sit him for a year, and which would be to his benefit. We've seen quarterbacks, Mr. Trubisky, who were rushed into action that I think was more of a detriment to him than not. There are just certain quarterbacks that you can take a risk at and play them right away, throw them into the deep part of the water because they got thick skin, because they're tough competitors, because they pick things up quickly. So, and Mitch didn't have all of those qualities. Mitch has been rumored to be not the smartest guy in the room, would pick things up a little slower and may have picked up things in the classroom, but they weren't necessarily being translated out to the practice field, which is why Matt Nagy was calling plays out of his Madden playbook instead of, schematically thinking of ways to beat teams and so forth. So it's a huge challenge. I think 2020, you're probably going to see a veteran quarterback start out unless they can move up for one of these quarterbacks that we're going to talk about right now as we transfer our discussion to the first round targets that you guys have worked together to identify. These are quarterbacks that Niel and Danny, and they don't even agree on some of this stuff, but in the first round, they have identified, of course, these quarterbacks to go in the first round: Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson. Danny, why don't you start us off and tell us, pick one of those quarterbacks you think could fall to 20, if any.
Well, 20 might be hard. You're probably going to have to, if you're Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, you're going to have to go ahead and go through your preference, your 1 through 5, if you will, and see which one you want. Now, at 20, you might see a Mac Jones there. You might see a Trey Lance there. It depends on how the board falls. We talked about this veteran free agency carousel of quarterbacks. Teams like Carolina is going to be in for a quarterback. Teams like, obviously, I think the Jets might be looking for a quarterback. We know the Jaguars are going with Lawrence first overall. So there are going to be a number of teams maneuvering and trying to get, secure these quarterbacks. So it depends on how it falls. You may have to move up, but the key is you got to have to identify the quarterback you want, right? Assuming obviously they all want Lawrence and he's not going to get him. But if it's whether Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance or Mac Jones, identify that pecking order. And if you see these guys starting going off, try and get that territory. Similar to what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. They knew they wanted Mahomes. They had a feeling that he was going to go in that area, and they marked the 10. I think it was Buffalo is who they traded with at 10, and that's where they jumped up and got him. So identify your guy and find a mark there. You're going to go up and get your guy. But if you're going to stay at 20, the possibility could be, I don't know, Neil, if you agree with this or not, but I think a Mac Jones is probably a guy that might be there. But the more and more you listen and hear to people talk now, he's impressed a lot of people down at the Senior Bowl, obviously with his accuracy and his his commitment to the game and his smarts. So I think they're not people talk about him in a top 15. So if this is the guy you want, this is the guy you identify, you're gonna have to probably trade up into that top 15 to get one of these quarterbacks. So, but if you're gonna sit at 20, I think a guy possibly could be there. It could be Mac Jones, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, in terms of Mac Jones, what I love about him is we talked about it. He's a guy that's smart. He's already graduated. He's working on his master's over at Alabama. A guy just loves football. He's we talk about the Senior Bowl practices. The guy's been charismatic. He's going on making in terms of his receivers, talking to them like, hey, where do you want the ball? What was that throw? Do you want it more to your inside, to your outside? Stuff that leaders do You see the players gravitate to him, during warm-ups and all that stuff. So coaching staff loves him. This is a guy that athletically is not going to compete with the other guys, the other four in this first round in terms of what they could do with with their feet, in terms of their athletic prowess. But this is a guy that he, shoulders above, his head's head. He's smart. He's a guy that can decipher, can make quick reads on the, when chaos is all around him. He's a guy that has a pretty deep ball, might throw the best deep ball in the draft. His accuracy downfield is pinpoint. He can throw receivers open. His ball placement is excellent. This is a guy that I'm really high on. And if the Bears are lucky, if he's the last one standing at 20, I'd be all over him.
Yeah, if he's available at 20, I'm 100% in the boat on that. I mean, as far as his performance at the Senior Bowl this week, I actually just got off the phone with somebody right before the show, and they said he stood, head, shoulders, knees, and toes above everybody else that was, down there in Mobile this week. And if you guys have been paying attention to, any of these practices or watching any of the coaches' tape, some of these throws that he's making, he puts, unbelievable touch on the ball. It's soft. It hits receivers' hands in very catchable fashion. I think one of the things that we really hit on during our quarterback show was the fact that he throws such a delicious deep ball, right? So, I mean, he's got ball placement. He's got the touch. He's got the accuracy. He's got the deep ball. He can make, pretty much all the throws. The one thing that I always had a question on him was as far as his overall athletic ability, how is that going to affect his game in this day and age, the NFL, where, having a mobile guy seems to be everything. And, how much juice does he have in that arm? Because, early in the season, I'm not sure if I really saw a whole lot of juice coming off those balls, but I think he proved, further on as we made our way through the year that, he can deliver something on a rope if he has to. And, you talked on Dan, you touched on his, charisma and his personality, being a locker room guy, a great teammate, captain, all those types of things. I mean, he's got all the tools. As far as anybody else that could potentially fall to that level, Trey Lance is another dude that I think is losing a lot of momentum, amongst all these other guys that have played a full season of football this year. Was putting all this tape out there and making all these plays. I think he's lost a lot of momentum. I don't think that he's necessarily a guy that we need to be too worried about starting day one, though. Although you made a point about how Mr. Trubisky was, slow to grasp and slow to learn. And you had to kind of, put the training wheels on and all those types of things. I'm hearing the opposite rumors about Trey Lance, that he's a film junkie. He's a quick learner. He's smart, comes from a football family. It's in his blood, all those types of things. I'm not sure that we're going to be in the same position. I know the whole first year starter thing is a really touchy topic right now. I'm not sure we're going to be in the same position if, Trey Lance ends up slipping too, right where we are, and he's available as well. And to be honest with you, between the two of those guys, it'd be tough not to take the really athletic, freaky, guy that has a strong arm and going to have a fast 40 and all those types of things. But I mean, at that point, you have to be really smart about your evaluation process and not just, bite on the hype, which is a lot of times what we have done as an organization. The Bears have done it as an organization time after time after time over the past, 25 years of our lives. Zach Wilson has been gaining a ton of momentum as we have gone through. And even though he's not down there in, Mobile, he still has a lot of juice behind his name right now. He put together a really, really saucy year. And he's shown that he can make all the throws, that he has the charisma, that he is a great teammate, all those kind of things that you have about Mac. And he has a little bit of that extra, sort of like, swag about him to where he can make some really, unique plays, a la Patrick Mahomes. Not that he, is trying to be Patrick Mahomes. Kid's just out there, going ahead and making plays. But I think those are the guys. Those are three guys that are realistic. I think that obviously, Trey Lance or Trevor Lawrence, he's going number one. We all know that. Justin Fields is going to go in the top, probably 2 or 3. I'm not sure that the Bears are going to have enough draft capital to be able to go up ahead and move to those spots. But the question is where is Zach Wilson going to fall? Is he going to be top 10? Is he going to be 10 to 15? Is he going to be, hovering around top 5? Some of those guys like Daniel Jeremiah today mentioned that he's kind of hearing some chatter around, top 5 around Zach Wilson right now. I'm not sure I'm necessarily buying that, but I could see it being a potential. So it's what's realistic as far as who you think you can get and where you are right now, and who you think you can get in giving up enough assets and resources to move up as far as you can to the point where you think you can get that individual.
Stephen, I'm sorry for interrupting. Stephen asks about Mac Jones. He says, I know people say the talent around him in Alabama made him what he is, but what if it's the opposite, that Jones made guys like Devontae Smith even better than Tua did? Is that crazy to think that?
I mean, if you look at it, Tua last year had, the full complement. He had, Jalen Waddle, he had Ruggs, he had Devontae Smith, he had, all these other guys that hadn't graduated yet. And, Mac Jones came in with Waddle and Smith, and then Waddle got hurt for most of the season. And it was just basically him and Smith and Najee Harris in the backfield. So now he does have 3 or 4 NFL offensive linemen in front of him as well. But you just look at them, like Niel was saying, the thing about him was like, a lot of these throws he's making are, it's the windows are wide open. It's just because the players he's throwing to are just so great. They're creating that separation. We took a look at these practices down at Mobile this week, and you see him making those tight window throws. There's the one throw down the seam to the tight end from Georgia where the guy was covered, but he threw it to a spot where he led him away from the defender, and the guy just put his arms on and made a catch. And those are the type of throws, NFL type throws you see Mac Jones throwing. And we see the highlights. We see him throwing a beautiful deep ball, hitting guys in stride, not even breaking stride, right in her hands, in her wheelhouse. So it's like this is probably one of the best deep ball throwers in the draft. And again, deep ball throwing is not the end all be all, but it definitely helps you when you can have the accuracy and downfield ability to be able to drive the football and hit a receiver in stride and allow them to go ahead and then utilize their skill set and ability to get more yards after the catch. So, the only thing about Mac Jones is just the athletic overall. He's not as athletic as some of the other quarterbacks.
Hey guys, just so you know, we would have beaten Philadelphia if we can complete a deep ball.
Oh yeah, we would have.
That is true. All right, let's move on. You guys have finished talking about those first round targets that you have, because now we're going to get to the juicy point where you guys disagree.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if you feel the same way, but if the Bears come away from the first night of the draft with one of these 5 quarterbacks, I'm good.
I'm good with any single one of those guys.
Yeah, me too.
And I think any single one of them are going to be able to fill the need. They're going to make us better. They're going to improve the room. So I'm good.
Yeah, and just to make sense here, make sure this makes sense to me in terms of the order of these guys. So this is pretty much how you see it: Lawrence, Fields, Lance, Jones, and Wilson. No, Wilson is higher.
Wilson third. No, that doesn't. No, that's
my bad.
Yeah, it's Wilson third. Lance and Mac Jones are 4 and 5, depending how you that's an interesting debate, Neil. Like if I thought about it, if you're sitting there and you're looking at 20, right, or whatever pick the Bears have, and both Lance and Jones are there, man, I know that Trey Lance, his ability, his athletic ability, like I said, the ball in his hands, run the ball, it's special. It's almost Lamar Jackson special, and he's shown the ability to be able to make NFL type throws, deep ball, the outs, and he's got the strong enough arm, the skill set's there. But man, it's like you're talking about a kid like Mac Jones who already has, the game from the shoulders up. Is just a matter of overall athletic ability. Man, it'll be a tough call for me.
But again, who's to say Trey Lance doesn't have that? Like we keep making Trey Lance out to be this Mr. Trubisky like bum where he can't think above the shoulder.
Not at all. I'm just saying I'm going off a 1-year tape of Trey Lance at a lower level competition, as opposed to a year and a half to almost 2 years of tape of Mac Jones versus SEC competition. So that's the only thing I'm looking at. And I love quarterbacks that are smart from the head. And you said Trey Lance could be that as well. I'm just saying it's a tough call for me. I think at the end, I'd have to probably go with the athletic ability because Trey Lance fits more of what today's NFL is, but it'd be a tough call for me to pick between those two guys.
I think the regret factor might be a little bit higher with Lance. I think that's what we're talking about here. The regret factor might just be a little bit higher there.
The ceiling is higher.
Because of the higher ceiling. Correct. Because of the very special, unique attributes that he has with the arm and the legs and the ability to run and, all these different types of. I think that the regret factor is higher there, which is why you may lean on that side. But again, whichever way we go at 20, if both those guys are available at 20, whichever way we go at 20, I'm not going to be upset about it one way, shape, or form.
Wouldn't it be like Ryan Pace to trade up and pick Kyle Trask in the first round?
Do not speak that into existence. Do not do it.
Aldo just back like 20 feet away.
Listen, in fact, that leads to my next question for you guys, and I'd love the opinion of the people in the chat room here. Ryan Pace went out of his way to say, we're going to get this quarterback situation right because we're going to collaborate. And he went on to basically say, now because I got Matt Nagy helping me make that decision, I'm not going to screw up like I did last time. Do you two guys and people in the chat room, let me know your thoughts. Do you guys think that Matt Nagy and John DeFilippo, I think he's going to have a say in this too. Do you think that they are going to help Ryan Pace choose the right guy as opposed to Kyle Trask?
That's the one that John DeFilippo and Laser as well. So I think those four guys combined, as opposed to just Ryan Pace and Nagy. But those four guys combined, and I think I have a lot of respect for DeFilippo and the way he coaches his quarterbacks and what he looks for in quarterbacks. Now, he might not be a great offensive play caller, but I think in terms of coaching up quarterbacks and identifying those guys, I think that's a guy that I trust his opinion on a lot. So I think those four guys collaborating should come up with a good, solid prospect for the Bears.
You feel the same way? You think Nagy and DeFilippo are going to help Pace make the right call?
Well, Pace can't do it by himself. I love that we get a little bit of a committee to get this job done the right way. I suppose a few more heads are better than one head that can't get it right. No, I'm being facetious, but hey, I mean, whoever has good input that can get this right for the final time, and so we have a dude that can carry us the next 15 years of our lives as Bears fans. Let's make it happen. Whatever we have to do, just make it happen.
And if they want, I think Niel is available too. We're both available if they want to call.
100%. Yes, I have nothing going on my schedule from now until the end of April. So let's make that. Let's go ahead and work some magic.
If they trade up for a quarterback, they lose draft capital to draft an offensive tackle as well, which is almost as big of a need.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you're talking. If you look at it back, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the Chiefs gave up, but I know they gave up obviously the 27th pick and then next year's first round pick. So, if you're looking at that, if you're looking at the 20th pick and next year's first round pick to move up, 10 slots, for example, it might even be that much. It might just be the first this year, maybe a third and a second next year, some wild combination. But it all depends on what you have to give up. So, to go from 10 to 20, you probably have to give up next year's first round pick. But, to get your quarterback, your potential franchise starting quarterback, it's worth giving up next year's first round pick for him, in my opinion.
All right, let's move on to your round 2 and 3, day 2 of the NFL draft, your targets then. Round 2, Danny had Sam Ehlinger, surprise, at round 2. But
Danny hook him.
But Niel disagrees with that pick, and I love the fact that you disagree. Before I go off and talk about some of the other guys, tell me why you guys disagree on Sam Ehlinger being a round 2 caliber quarterback.
Well, I don't know if it's. I mean, we both think it's day 2, right? Obviously, he just thinks it's day. Round 3. I think round 2. But I think with Ehlinger and the questions about him was always is his size. And he he's listed at 6'3" at Texas, which I knew he wasn't 6'3". He came in about 6'1.5", I think 6'1.5" and a quarter or something like that, which is roughly where I expected him to come in. The other thing was his ability to drive the ball down the field with accuracy consistently. And that's something that the scouts are looking at now at the Senior Bowl. And I think, and Niel, I don't know if you agree, but I think the offense he was playing it with Tom Herman didn't help him. It didn't really showcase some of his skill sets in terms of being able to throw the ball downfield. Because a lot of the questions I've heard about him are his ability for ball placement, throwing with touch and throwing receivers open. There are times I see him throw receivers. I did a highlight package earlier in the year where you see him leading receivers and throwing to a spot and having guys like last year, like Devin Duvernay, run to a spot and make a catch. So I've seen him do it. Now it's the consistency factor that I agree with in terms of the first couple of years when he was playing. I saw a little bit more consistency downfield and a little more accuracy. The last year and a half, I've seen some of that, the ball sailing a little bit, the ball being a little bit off target. So, if he can, get that squared away down at the Senior Bowl and show these NFL GMs, scouts, and coaches that he can make those type of throws and be consistent and accurate downfield. Listen, this guy's going to blow them away in the classroom, guys. In the interview process, he's going to blow them away hands down. This is a guy that coaches are going to fall in love with in terms of his, football acumen, his moxie, and his leadership. So it's just a matter of him going ahead and convincing the NFL, management team that he can make these, throws down the field. And he can be consistent there. And I think he will do that. And I think eventually a team is going to maybe later on in the third round or whatnot say, hey, you know what? I don't want to wait for this guy. I might trade up, get into the second round and pick him. So that's why I see him going in round 2.
And I think 3, because I think when you talk about round 2 guys, I think you're talking about still guys that you want to bring in and give them a shot to be the guy. You're just not willing to go ahead and pay them first round money, if that makes sense. With Sam, I'm just not 100% sold on him. I like him a lot. I think he has incredible intangibles. I think he's an awesome leader. He's shown this year, how he's able to lead a team back from being, I forget how far behind they were against Oklahoma, but what was that? Overtime win. And he basically owned overtime, type of deal. I think that he has that kind of moxie about him to be able to go ahead and take over a game. You don't see it consistently enough for me to be go ahead and pounding my fist on the table, get him 5 figures right off the bat. I think that, he's got a decent arm. I think that, he runs really tough, and he can be one of those dudes that can be featured in a run heavy type of offense, a spread option type of offense, a spread heavy type of offense. I'm not at the point to where I'm ready to give that guy 5 figures off the bat yet. I think he's got a little bit to prove. The tape that's so far on the quarterbacks this year at Senior Bowl has been really just okay. I'm really looking at game day on Saturday afternoon to see what he does when they put him into live action, and that's really going to be something that I'm going to tune into and watch really hard, because the practice tape has just been all right. Really, Mac Jones has been the one that's really stood out, and everybody else has just been kind of ho hum. I would probably say Sam's probably been second, but that's not to say that I don't like Sam. Danny and I both have him going day 2. I think it's just going to fall a little bit further in day 2. I think in the beginning of the year I had him day 4 and I moved him up, because he's had a really good year and he showed some really nice things. He's got a lot of traits that the NFL is really going to like. I think really it starts from up here and goes outward.
Now, the one quarterback that you both did agree on that has second round value is Kyle Trask from Florida. Danny, why don't you talk about him?
Yeah, the thing about Trask is he's a guy that I wasn't high on coming into this season, as I think Niel was higher on initially. But he too has shown me some stuff in terms of his ball placement downfield, his accuracy, his ability to run that offense. Again, it's not a really complicated offense they run over in Florida, but it's an offense where he was successful and he had some good weapons on the outside. We talk about Kadarius Toney, Grimes, the receiver. We talk about Pitts, who could be a sensational tight end at the next level. But, and he's got the size at 6'4", but he's another guy that athletically doesn't match up with any of the quarterbacks. And for me, is I have the same questions that scouts have about Ehlinger, and that's his ability to drive the ball consistently downfield, particularly in bad climate situations. Playing in Chicago, we talked about before. Bad weather could be could be any one of the home games you could have. Past October, right? So those are my questions about him. But in terms of another guy that's and Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard is there's another guy that's heavy into the game preparation. He's a film junkie. He's a guy who loves ball. His off the field stuff is all A+, and he checks all the boxes there as well. So he's another guy that's going to impress the coaches with his acumen and his ability to be able to hopefully learn an NFL system and be there and be a leader for a team. So for me, it's just some of the physical limitations for me are what kind of give me a little bit of a pause there. But definitely a guy, if you get him in the second round, I think, for example, some people in the chat were talking about the Bears going offensive tackle in the first round. That could be the case. All 5 quarterbacks we talked in the first round could be gone. Bears could go offensive tackle, could go playmaker, whatnot, and they could come back in the second round. And maybe a guy like a Kyle Trask or Ehlinger, could be there for them. And in that case, that'd be a nice fit there for them as well in terms of value. So, that's why I don't hate the kid. I have more questions than I do about the other guys.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty vocal on my thought on Kyle Trask as far as where I see him falling, specifically for the Bears. If I'm Ryan Pace for the Bears, I think that Kyle Trask has 4th round value, because he has a lot of attributes that don't really fit well with what I value into what works in the system that is run by Matt Nagy. You hit on it. Physical attributes. He's not a gifted athlete. He is a finesse passer. He's not a dude that's going to drive the ball down the field. And you touched on inclement weather. I think that in Dan Mullen's system, you have to have a guy that is a film room junkie, that is a playbook junkie, a football junkie. That is a requirement of his quarterback. So he is that guy. And, it shows given his trajectory upward as he's improved from last year to this year. Right. I just don't see his athletic ability, being able to make plays with his legs, the okay arm talent. And again, I mean, he does a beautiful job of ball placement, all the things that we really like about Mac Jones going down the field. He has those things too. If you combine those things with what Trey Lance has as far as athletic attributes, you're talking about potentially a second, pick in the draft as far as quarterbacks goes. But I think there's a lot of things that drive scouts away that makes Kyle Trask probably second round at best. And I think there's a lot of systems he fits really well into. I keep talking about Pittsburgh because they have this very similar guy right now in Ben Roethlisberger, who's back there, who's a big stout dude and just throws the ball down the field. Now Ben has a stronger arm, right, but Kyle Trask is able to deliver the ball with accuracy on time and place that thing down the field, and that's what's really attractive. Can the arm talent get better? Can the arm strength get better? Possibly, but I think he's a kid that is a very specific fit, and that's why I see him going anywhere between 2 and 4 for the Bears. If he's there at 4, and we miss out on these first 5 guys, and we go tackle, we go linebacker, and we do something in the 3rd round, and he's there in the 4th round, and he's there for the taking, I would not mind taking him in 4. But anywhere above 4 for me for the Bears, I think it's a no go.
Yeah, with him, and you mentioned him and Mac Jones. Mac Jones, like I said, has a stronger arm. Mac Jones has run an NFL style system over Alabama, so he has all those concepts down. He's a guy that I think will come in and be more pro ready to be able to take reins of an offense right away. So, but yeah, I mean, and then like I said, talk about the physical attributes. Either one of those guys are mobile guys, but I think Mac has a little bit more mobility, if you will. You may disagree there, Neil, but
no, he ran option at high school in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
he ran
Mac Jones, right?
Offense down there, yeah.
Right. So he might be a little bit more, sneaky, athletic, whatnot, than a guy like Trask, but definitely that arm strength is much better than Trask still. But yeah, again, you're talking about value here. See, for me, like I don't think Trask would last in the 4th round. I think if he's there in the 2nd round, if you're the Bears, for example, you didn't get a quarterback in the 1st round, and he's a guy. I'm curious, Neil. You said you don't think he fits the Bears system. Are you talking from an athletic standpoint, not a guy that can run? Is that why you don't think he fits in the Bears system, or what are you referring to there in terms of not a ideal fit?
I would prefer to have a guy that can make plays with his legs.
But Mike Jones can't make plays with. I mean, he's not going to be a guy that's going to be relied to be, making plays with legs either. But
he's not going to be Lamar Jackson, but he can make plays with his legs. He's athletic enough to be able to. He's adequate, right? You attach that word adequate onto Mac Jones. I don't even think Kyle Trask is adequate. I think Kyle Trask is, just a little bit further beyond a standing statue back there.
Okay.
Because he's going to end up running somewhere well into the 5s on his 40. And we can go ahead and make a bet on that if you want to. But I'm pretty sure he's going to.
There's no combine this year. Or are you going to say the 48?
What's that?
There's no combine this year. Or are you going to say the 48?
There'll be the pro
days. Yeah, the 4 days. Yeah.
And then that information is going to be shared. I mean, let's be honest. Like, all these people are going to be very hungry for numbers. That information is going to be shared out.
They're supposed to have representatives of the NFL to try to make sure the circumstances are as similar as possible for comparison's sake. Now, we know that's not going to be 100% accurate, but hopefully they'll do a good job of that.
I'm very against this, by the way.
What's that?
Very, very against this no combine, by the way. Because I think the one thing that works in scouts' favors is, number one, efficiency. You get all the best players in the country from all these colleges in one building, and you have the constant of being on the same field. But what's the biggest thing about experiments, guys? You have a constant and a variable. The variable is the player. The constant is the field. The constant is the building. The constant is having everybody together under one roof, right? You remove the constant, you introduce the possibility for other variables to become involved to skew the final product. And then that's why I'm not for this whatsoever. I get the whole, COVID thing. It's, danger and, protocols and everything else. But we just played a whole freaking football season with no issues.
All right.
It was a serious issue.
And you're having a Senior Bowl week, and I think Indy, and I'm with you on this one, Neil, because Indy gives you that the way it's set up with the way the dome is set up to the convention center to the hotel is that you can create your own little mini bubble. Which, as a matter of fact, I think the Final Four is going to be the tournament's going to be NCAA tournament is going to be in Indy this year, and they're going to create
7 arenas in or around Indy.
Right, it's going to be their own like kind of mini bubble. So I think I'm with you there. I mean, I think if they wanted to, the NFL could have put this together still and created their mini bubble. And had players there, come in, test a couple of days before they're supposed to go on the field and test. And then once they're done testing, they can go and leave home, take off.
Everybody's got a different field turf, guys. Like there isn't one single field turf that runs the same as anybody else's field turf in the country. Maybe they have like the same brand or whatever, but the way it's taken care of, Florida's field turf is going to be different from Northwestern's field turf. It's going to be different from Mississippi State's field turf. It's going to be different from USC's field turf. You're not going to have the same surface, and that's going to really drive a stake into the heart of consistency in this whole thing. I'm telling you, it's going to piss a lot of people off, and it's really going to skew the numbers, and there's going to be a lot of question marks.
There's no doubt about that. And thanks to Stephen for making us aware that apparently Mac Jones has suffered an ankle injury at practice today.
Yeah,
and Jim McBride, I believe he's with the USA Today. Let's see. Jim is Boston Globe. He says, update, Jones said he tweaked. I don't know. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Jones said that he tweaked his left ankle, and there's a chance he won't play in Saturday's Senior Bowl. He needs to get treatment. I got a feeling that he is not going to play. When he volunteers that information that there's a chance that he can't play, I got a feeling he's not going to play because he doesn't want to risk that first round projection that so many people are telling him he's already got in the bag.
That came out live though too. When watching that practice live today. Like he said on camera, it was like, yeah, I tweaked it a little bit. If this was like he was talking to Matt Rule, if this was a game during the season, I'd be able to still go out there and play. But this is exhibition. NFL is on the line. He set out the rest of practice. Didn't say whether or not he was going to play Saturday or not, but it's probably smart for me not to go with the rest of practice today. So he just got kind of rolled up on a little bit up the pile. Kind of rolled up on his ankle a little bit. That's all it was. It didn't look gruesome. It didn't look like it was going to be a really big time deal. Expect maybe just a little bit of a sprain that would take a couple weeks to heal. Probably smart for him not to play, to be honest with you, unless it was even less than a sprain. And maybe it was just he got rolled up on a little bit and it's a little bit.
Well, I hope
be fine.
He plays, he's one of those guys that I desperately want to see him play in that game and see if he can do some of the things that you guys have been talking about.
Yeah. I mean, and then just knowing how the competitor he is, I bet you he goes on and plays. It might be only for a series or two, but he's gonna, I think, sit up and play. I think
I'll take it. I'll take it, even if it's a couple of series. And then one other guy I'm really looking forward to see play Saturday is Jamie Newman, who Danny has targeted as a 3rd round pick, and Niel is targeting for the 4th round pick. Let me start with you, Danny. Why do you like Jamie Newman as a 3rd rounder?
Well, Newman was a guy I told you guys in our first show, and we talked about quarterbacks. The guy I was really looking forward to watching this year, coming off that 1 year, his first year starting at Wake Forest last year. He was going to go to play at Georgia, and then the whole thing he opted out for the COVID thing. So I think what he's done down there in Mobile this week is he's reminded everyone that the type of athlete, the type of physical specimen he is at that quarterback position. So he's another one that his deep ball, anything outside the numbers, I mean, those hash to the outside, field side of the throws, those are on a rope, on a line drive. And his deep balls are pretty, it hits receivers in stride, accurate downfield. So his main thing is deciphering the junk that's in the middle of the field, those safety that's playing a robber position, those guys kind of creep up on him and intercept the ball on him and come out of nowhere. So he's got to have to get better at processing the game. But again, he's a guy that's another guy, 6'2", 6'3", 200 plus pounds. He can run with the football. He's a guy that's got a competitive attitude on the football field. You see him, trucking guys at the goal line. Those are the type of things that NFL teams just salivate when he's seen their quarterback. So again, he's a guy that's not a finished product by no means, but I think teams are going to see that this guy's got the potential, got the tools that, I'm gonna take him in the third round because I don't know if he'll be there in the fourth or fifth round. Another guy didn't play at all this season, so he's got a lot of question marks to answer off the field. So hopefully, that interview process is going well for him. But we've seen some highlights here, like he's running over guys at the goal line. So this is a guy that's a physical specimen, has shown the ability to get the ball down deep, and he throws a beautiful football. Does he have work to do? Yeah. Is he going to be able to come in and probably start from day one? Probably not. But definitely a guy you can take use a third round pick on him, and you can put him on a bench for a year or two, and hopefully you have a starter coming down the road.
And I have him in 4 because of risk. Sat out the entire year, blamed it on COVID, spent an entire year not playing football. Yeah, he's got all the athletic attributes in the world. He's a big physical specimen, 6'2" and a quarter. Thick kid, big old hands. He measured 10. As far as his hand width, he's a guy that you didn't see this year, and so it's hard to compare apples to apples as far as guys playing in 2020 versus guys playing in 2019. I understand his 2019 film that was really good, and he did a really good job, had a really good year, all these are really good things and everything else, but it's a risk. And if the interview process is going well and he's clearing up the reason why he sat out and he's being authentic and stand up about the whole thing, then I could see him potentially moving up to round 3. But I still feel like a guy that hasn't played a full year of football, and let's not pretend like he's really been lighting it up down there in Mobile, throwing the ball around in practice. Like, he's just had an okay week.
But you're okay with Trey Lance in the first round, though.
I'm okay with Trey Lance in the first round. Trey Lance
didn't play a full year of football either, though.
Hey, he played 1 game this year and had a really good.
Does his age bother you?
He had an unbelievable 2019 season. You can't say that Jamie Newman had an unbelievable 2019 season. That's the big time difference right there.
Does Jamie Newman's age concern you at all? He's 24 or will be 24 by the end of the 2021 season. For me, let me answer that. To me, it doesn't bother me at all. With quarterbacks playing now into their late 30s, early 40s, we're going to see a quarterback in the Super Bowl. The conditioning, what it is, what matters, I think, is what Niel just hit on. Is he authentic? Why did he miss that season? Was it because he just wanted to play it safe? And does he really care about his teammates? And is he really going to take care of his body? So you got to interview him, but you also got to interview people around him who know him very well, people who have had lots of interaction with him, and get a sense for his character. For me, I love the guy. The way he plays, I think he is like a Dak Prescott, meaning that Dak Prescott, when he was available in the 4th round, I was like, what the hell is going on? Why is he dropping that one? That guy is worth taking a shot in the 3rd round. I can't believe he's in the 4th round. I was pissed off that the Chicago Bears didn't take a chance at him. So I think that if this guy is available and you haven't picked a quarterback in round 1 or round 2, and this guy's available in round 3 for the Chicago Bears, I'm going to be throwing stuff if Jamie Newman isn't being announced as a Chicago Bears draftee in round 3. I'm going to be real.
I don't know if Neil, you heard the same thing, but for me, there are some questions around him in terms of, he was told he has to compete for the job at Georgia, and he didn't really like that. Is that what you heard as well? That's some of the stuff that I heard, not confirmed, but.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I heard. That was a rumbling. They had JT Daniels coming in, and I mean, honestly, if you're coming into a situation expected to just be gifted the starting job, who are you as a competitor? I want a guy that once he's told, yeah, you're going to have to go ahead and compete. Well, all right, let's go ahead, rock on.
Like Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Mac Jones was no one thought he was going to start. They thought that 5-star recruit was going to come in and take his job, and he said, no way.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want a guy who thinks he's supposed to be gifted everything in a handbasket. Who are you to be entitled like that, right?
For sure.
I didn't hear anything substantial about that, so I'm not right. Sure if that's truth or not. But
me too. Yeah, I hear it.
Something was floating around out there, and let's not treat that as gospel. But it's at least something that, as a scout, as one of these guys that's down there in Mobile, one of these 10 scouts for these 32 teams that's down there in Mobile. You got to go ahead and dig deep and figure out what the hell is going on. Why did he sit out? What's the real reason?
Exactly.
Well, and there's a story floating around about Zach Wilson, that he comes from kind of an entitled background, rich parents and so forth. Now, it was one radio station guy who put that up on social media. So you can kind of take that with a huge grain of salt. But at the same time, it's the scout's job to be following up on that and talking to teammates and finding if this guy got an attitude, does he think he's better than you and so forth. It's all the part of the stuff that happens in the scouting business, as you guys know much better than me.
And it happened to be a Utah beat writer. Was it a Utah beat writer?
Yes. Go ahead.
And Aldo, you could ask Niel why Dak Prescott dropped to the fourth round. He was there at Mississippi State when he was there.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I know anything about the reason why.
So did it have anything to do with the drunk driving incident that he had after the season? Dak Prescott had a DUI, and I was like, oh my goodness, this guy was a second round draft pick. Maybe, who knows, maybe even first. And I was really looking at the way, I think you're biting your tongue. I'm looking at your image right here. Let me pull up a close up. All right, so he doesn't want to talk about it. All right, let's move on.
I'm just going to go ahead and plead the fifth on that one. I'm not going to go on record saying anything that I know.
Very good. All right, on day 3 of the NFL draft, you rarely find a gem, but like a Dak Prescott, and a Tom Brady, there are gems occasionally available, not often, but occasionally. I want you guys to talk about who you particularly like in this round. Let me tell our people in the podcast that in round 4, you guys have decided Kellen Mond is a good pick. Again, Niel has Jamie Newman slotted in that 4th round. In round 5, you've slotted nobody there. In round 6, Shane Buechele. Ian Book, who was not in our preseason rankings, has now moved up into the 6th round. And by the way, Danny, I hate to tell you this, but there are some people at the Senior Bowl saying that Ian Book has moved ahead of Sam Ehlinger in their draft projections, but that's something to talk about later. And then in round 7, Colin Hill and Philippe Franks, who apparently has the hugest hands at the Senior Bowl. So tell me, Niel, I'll start with you. Which of these guys is one guy that you would like to target at the particular round you've slotted him in that you think would be a really good value?
Well, I mean, you look at these 4 guys that we have left. I mean, 5 guys. Kellen Mond we have in 4. I'm not sure how sold I am on Kellen Mond as a quarterback. He and Ian Book are sort of the same adjective to me: consistently inconsistent. Those are 2 guys that spent their entire career playing a lot of football, but not playing a lot of good football, right? Not playing a lot of good quarterback. And especially being as close to Notre Dame and their fan base, for most of my entire life, they generally, I mean, yeah, Ian Book may be the wingest quarterback in the history of Notre Dame, but they're still going to go ahead and hail Joe Montana on that slot. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys, they're not very fired up about Ian Book, but he's won a lot of games. You can't take that away from him. And he had a really good year. He had the most consistent year of his particular career. When you look at what he did from a touchdown interception ratio, I know that he was not featured as a guy that sprays the ball all over the field, but he still generally took care of the football. He minimized his mistakes, which was a big time bugaboo throughout the course of his career, not making great mistakes. And I mean, he showed the ability to go ahead and use his athleticism a little bit better this year as well. He's a kid that's got a ton of leadership, multi-year captain. He's really good above the shoulders. One of those film room playbook junkies that we talk about. Big time leader, teammate, locker room guy. As far as intangibles go, he brings all those things. And so I think that as a guy with, and I say this all the time, play history with Ian Book. He's a guy that really, before he proved that he could go ahead and get himself drafted based on his talent in this class, you would probably take that kid in the 6th or 7th round just based on play history alone, because he's played a lot of football at the top level. So Ian Book at 6, I like him there. As far as Kellen Mond goes in 4, I think that you take Kellen Mond at 4 as a project. I think that he's a dude that is in a similar way with Ian Book, is a guy who's played a lot of inconsistent quarterback throughout his career, has a ton of athletic attributes that you really like, that if you can get him in your room and develop him to be a pro style guy, that, he could potentially, he has that kind of ceiling to, reach that potential. I think 4 is the perfect slot for him as a developmental dude. Shane Duchell, I have over there next to Ian Book as a guy that has shown the ability to spray the ball over the field and connect with receivers. He's played with the NFL guy, Danny Gray, that I really like. We'll be hearing his name, down the road here. I like Shane Duchell as a really good backup in the league that may get a shot to be a starter, but I think he's going to be a backup for a few years. And then Felipe Franks really kind of came out of nowhere. Felipe Franks was a guy that, to me, he lost his job at Florida, had to go find work elsewhere, found a home at Arkansas, developed as more of a old school pro style quarterback than a new school pro style quarterback, as a guy that plays in a system that has historically been run heavy, all about toughness and punch you in the mouth, kick you in the throat in Arkansas. He's able to move the pocket, make plays with his legs. The biggest guy at the Senior Bowl, and that's not even close. He and Jamie Newman had the biggest hands. They both measured in at 10. He could really rip the ball down the field, and he's been that kind of guy throughout his entire career. I remember him in the recruiting process, coming out of the Panhandle of Florida. He has always been a big dude. He's always had a big arm. He's always been able to rip the ball. It was just a matter of him being able to develop. And I think he did a good job of showing that he has the ability to develop, to be coachable, and be a pro style guy at Arkansas. I think he's a guy in 7 that you find a lot of value with, because he's a guy that is the ultimate developmental guy. He's a guy that you can take a flyer on, get on your roster, just see what he can do. And Colin Hill's the same way. Colin Hill's a big physical dude as well. Colin Hill has a lot of Tim Tebow type stuff going on with the way that he runs the ball, his build, his style, and everything else. He doesn't have a gifted arm. He doesn't have, gifted athletic ability, but the kid's tough. The kid's smart. And, as a one-year starter in the SEC, made South Carolina viable, when really, if it wasn't for him, they probably would have had just a terrible year. So that's kind of what I think about those last 5 guys. Danny, where are you at on that?
Well, if you're asking me as my GM there, Aldo, which one of these guys am I going to use a draft pick on? There's really 2 of this list that I would really, look to use a draft pick on. And that would be Kellen Mond in the 4th round. And for him is everything about him intrigues me. He's the athletic kid. He's 6'2". He's got the build. The ball just jumps out of his hand. He's got a strong arm, can make all the throws. A dual threat quarterback, a guy who this year improved his completion percentage up to 63.3, which is the highest of his career. 4-year starter at Texas A&M. A guy who Jimbo Fisher swears by in terms of being smart, dedicated to the craft, in terms of in his playbook and watching tape and all that stuff. But like Niel said, the thing about him is he's just so darn inconsistent. I mean, he'll have great games where he looks like a potential day 1, day 2 quarterback. And then there's games like, I wouldn't waste a draft pick on this kid. So that's the only thing. But his skill set really is tantalizing. And I think a quarterback guru or coach will say, you know what? I can work with this. These guys got the skill set. I can try and get some of these bad habits out of it, and we can make it work with him. And the other guy that on this list that I would be intrigued by in terms of drafting using a draft pick is Shane Buechele from SMU. He's a guy that started off at Texas, ended up losing his job to due to injury to Ellinger, and ended up going to SMU, and he's put up Madden type numbers. Sprays the ball all over the field. Size isn't the greatest. It's about 6'1" or 6 feet 6'1", if that. Arm isn't the greatest. Is not the strongest arm. So there's questions about that. But he's a guy that processes the game nicely. I believe a guy that will need some time to adjust in terms of the type of offense he comes from, because he's a full spread offense quarterback. So I think he'll come in and probably take some while to learn the playbook. But I think worst case scenario, you have yourself a solid backup quarterback. But another guy that you see right there, he can move the pocket and change his launch angle and arm angles as well in order to get rid of the football. So he brings some stuff in terms of his ability as a passer. So those are the 2 guys that intrigue me in terms of using a draft capital on. But the other guys are just guys that I think are going to get drafted. But if I'm a scout and you're my GM, I'm not telling you to draft those guys. Philippe Franks, he's got all the physical skills you want, but he's not the guy that from the shoulders up, he just doesn't get it. And he had some off the field stuff in Florida. Ended up transferring, had a solid season in Arkansas his first year there this past season, but still a guy that he's going to get drafted just because of his size and stuff. But I wouldn't waste a draft pick on him. Colin Hill, like Niel said, he's got the size. Played at South Carolina, had some moments. So he's another one that may find himself as, on a roster. Could, a team could use a draft pick on him. But for me, if you're my GM and I'm telling you, if you ask me which of these two quarterbacks I'm going to, advise you to use a draft capital on, it's either Kellen Mond or Shane Buechele.
You know who we're going to see at least 2 quarters of this weekend if Mac doesn't play?
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Newman and I just blanked.
Felipe Franks?
No, Felipe Franks is actually on the other side.
On the other team, yeah.
Ian Book, right?
And no, not Ian Book. Jesus, why am I blanking on that? Good.
Talk about the American roster, right?
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's Jamie Newman, Kellen Mond.
Kellen Mond, that would be
Kellen Mond. You're going to see probably 2 quarters from each of those guys this weekend instead of having a split time between 3 guys. Mm-hmm. Jamie Newman and Kellen Mond are going to get a lot of playing time this weekend if Mac Jones has to sit out.
Somebody in the chat room asked about the kid from Cincinnati, Ritter. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, Desmond Ritter. He's coming back to school. He's going back to school, and he's a guy that I like. He's a guy that caught my eye last year. I thought he had a chance coming out this year. Ended up going back. Probably a good idea just to go back and get another year experience. But yeah, he's a guy, another kid that's got a solid arm strength and he's a big about 6'3", I think 6'3", 6'3.5", long strider, a guy that's a dual threat, uses his feet to be a weapon as well. So he's a guy to keep an eye on for next season.
All right, let's switch the conversation now to interior offensive linemen that you have been scouting over the last few weeks, and talk a little bit about who do you like, who you don't like. Now, let me start by asking you guys about the interior offensive line position for the Chicago Bears. I, for one, think that is the strongest part of the offensive line, and now you have depth. Because of the injury situation that happened with the Chicago Bears, we now know that we've got 4 viable offensive linemen in the middle that could be starters. Definitely Cody White here at the left guard, and he's proven himself at the center position to be an average or a little bit better than an average center, but left guard is his position. At center, we were all impressed by the play of Sam Mustipher, and it was a very some people are complaining that against better competition, he didn't play that well. Well, I'm not too worried about that. I see that he's a young player that's going to get better and better, but he certainly played very well at the right guard position. We saw Alex Bars there, and so and then who's the fourth?
James Daniels.
And then James Daniels, who played left guard and started that at left guard at the beginning of the position and played very well until the injury sidelined him. So you got 4 guys there at the interior of the offensive line. So perhaps that's going to be a focus of the draft for the Chicago Bears. Now, one other thing about those interior linemen is that Cody White here does have that big contract, and it would be really difficult from a cap hit perspective to trade him this season, because you still be responsible for a good portion of his contract. But after the 2021 season, you can save some cap dollars and maybe then move into that left guard position or center position, whatever position he would be vacating with one of these young players. Your thoughts, first of all, on the Bears' interior offensive line? Anything you disagree with me? Anything that I got wrong?
No, I mean, if you hit on a spot there. I mean, I think that went from a weak spot to a strength, and once they got that combination out there, and the great thing that I love, especially for my interior linemen, I love position versatility. And 3 out of those 4 guys you just mentioned can play multiple positions. You have Daniels who can play center and guard. You have Whitehair who can play center and guard. And you have Alex Bars actually could probably play all 5 positions. We've seen him play center. We've seen him play left and right guard. He played left tackle, and Notre Dame could probably play right tackle in a pinch. So, that's great versatility. I think if Mustipher, and I think we all believe that Mustipher, what he showed, the majority of what he showed is what we're going to get. And he's a guy that's very coachable. He's a guy that's probably going to get stronger, get better. Remember, this is only his first full season really on an active roster. He was only 2nd season overall with the Bears. So definitely a guy that surprised me. And like I said, I think he's going to get better. I anticipate him getting better, but he's a true center. So I think I would leave him there. And then I would mix and match on the other position. So if you do go with Daniels at left, move White here to right guard. Then you have a guy like Alex Bars that could play any of these positions. That's so valuable, especially on game day when you can dress only a limited amount of players. A guy that can play multiple positions, allows you to probably dress an extra tight end or an extra receiver or an extra DB, whatever you need that particular week. So I think that's key there. So that's why going through these players here, there's a lot of good players here, and some players here that offer you some position versatility. But so maybe you get one if you make some trades or you get some comp picks, you have some extra, you want to get some more depth in. Remember, they also drafted those 2 kids last year in the 7th round, Hambright and Simmons as well. So I think they have high hopes for those guys in terms of developing as well in the system. So those could also be interior guys as well. So they might not even look at interior guys, to be honest with you. Maybe some UDFAs after the draft. We'll see what happens. But my thing for the Bears would be tackle. You got to bring in a young tackle, preferably a guy that can play multiple sides. Bring him in, put him in the right side initially, and then eventually, when you get out of the Leno contract, you can flip him over to the left side. That'll be my focus going into the draft in terms of the offensive line. Again, depth is always going to be great to have. So if you have extra picks and you see a guy there with a high grade, you can't believe he's sitting out there and is an interior offensive lineman, bring him in. You can never have too many offensive linemen, just like you never have too many pass rushers.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't ever have too many big athletic dudes, right? And having a surplus of those, especially on the interior, that's a phenomenal problem to have. I think position versatility is going to be the theme of the offensive line going forward, as far as who they pick in this draft, because you have a few guys here that play offensive tackle in college, will be functional offensive tackles in the NFL, can move inside to guard and be really good at the guard positions. You have a couple of these guys that play both positions in college, in guard and tackle, that could be functional at center. I think you have a lot of really interesting prospects. I think the offensive line is probably arguably the deepest position group in this entire draft. And so it's going to be interesting looking at these guys going forward and really seeing what the scenarios are that play out as far as where the Bears fall, what they decide to do with their trades, and really ultimately on draft day who they actually do select.
Yeah, I won on social media. I was getting a lot of pushback. I forgot what it was I posted, but people were like, "You got to draft an offensive tackle in the first round." The thing I think people are failing to account for is that this is a really deep draft for offensive tackles. I mean, a lot of really good tackles. You could potentially find a starter in round 3, a plug and play kind of player. Am I wrong with that, guys?
No,
Not at all.
not at all.
Right. So, there's so many other needs, particularly at the quarterback position. And one of the things that I researched is like 50% of the starters in the NFL are first round draft pick quarterbacks. And if they're drafted on day 3, you're looking at probably 4%, 5% of the quarterbacks in the NFL were drafted on day 3. So you got to find your quarterback early and you got to make a good pick. Obviously, if 50% were first rounders, that means 50% failed, like a Mitch Trubisky. And so you got to make sure you make the right pick. But your odds of finding a starter at the quarterback position are much higher in the first round. All right, guys, let's go through some of these interior offensive linemen that you like. Niel, let's start with you. What about what's the guy's name? Crete Humphrey.
Crete. Okay, so hey, Crete, he plays center for Oklahoma. Started 36 of 38 games. I think that's a really interesting point on really all these guys that we're talking about on the interior of the offensive line. The interesting note on this offensive guard and center class, these interior guys, a lot of guys on this list have played a lot of football, right? You're talking about guys that made 30 to 40 starts. Play history and experience is not going to be an issue with any of these guys, with the vast majority of these guys anyways. Crete specifically, he started 36 of 38 games over the course of his career, 35 straight starts. I mean, you talk about durability with this kid. And alongside durability, you talk about strength. He hasn't allowed a sack in 2 years. Interior offensive line guys, to me, have to be able to win in a phone booth, and he does that. Toughness and mean streak guy. He finishes plays. He looks like he has a lot of fun doing it as well. And, the thing about him, I think that makes him really good winning in a phone booth is that this kid's a former wrestler. He plays with excellent leverage, body positioning, angles, phenomenal functional strength, and he's also a bench press champion. So not only an efficient blocker, but he can move bodies with great control when he's engaged. Well-developed lowers. He can create some anchor. Top-notch field awareness and football intelligence. He's a leader of the offensive line. I mean, he's a great communicator. You can see him in games. He makes calls. And, he's only played center in college, but, I wouldn't put it past him to be able to go ahead and play guard as well. He seems to have that kind of athletic ability and strength to be able to do that. You just don't have the empirical data of him doing that. And that's really the thing on him. And he's had a really good week so far too. You watch that coach's tape, those one-on-one drills and pass rush drills. He's done a good job anchoring offensive line as an offensive lineman, whether he's playing guard or center. He's mainly been lining up as guard. But he's done a good job. He's been controlling his space. He's been tough, latching on, not giving up his blocking position. I like this kid a lot. I think he's tough as hell, and he's going to be a hell of a pick in the first round.
Danny, you want to comment on Crete and then take us to a player that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, Crete Humphrey, I love this kid. Like Niel mentioned, this guy was a starter as a freshman at Oklahoma. He came into this process as my top center in this draft, and he's going to leave as my top center in this draft most likely. He's 6'4". He came in at 6'4", 312 pounds. Arms are a little bit short, about 31 inches, a little less than 32. So I think eventually, I think his center will be his position in the NFL. And like Niel was saying, and this kid's tough. He's athletic. He's a guy that shows the lower half strength, and when he anchors, his ability to be able to set that bridge and be able to thwart off a bull rush with not only his lower body power but also his hand placement, his hand usage. Is a guy that will set his hands, will shoot his hands, and when they get knocked off, he'll reset them again. He's consistently working his hands, and I love that about him. He's a guy that former wrestler. Whenever you hear wrestler and offensive line said in the same sentence, my ears perk up because those guys know leverage. They know how to use their hands to be able to maintain and get guys out of the way. So this is a guy that is athletic. He shows ability to move left and right laterally. I think he's a guy that's probably might be tailor made for a system like a zone stretch scheme where he's asked to go ahead and move laterally and maintain those blocks, and he can do that. So Crete Humphrey is a guy that he might not go in the first round just because, like I said, some of the measurables aren't NFL worthy, if you will, but his play on the field is definitely first or second round quality.
All right.
And in terms of moving on,
I'm sorry, I got mixed up here with my graphics. Take us to somebody else there, Danny.
Well, it's a guy that I wanted to talk to Niel about because I mean we have different grades on him, and actually this is a guy that the NFL has got different. I mean, I've seen him all over the place. So Rashawn Slater, the guard, the tackle from Northwestern, a guy that I see as a first round player, but I see him inside as guard. So what I've seen so far is I've seen people say that this guy can play guard, this guy can play tackle. I've seen him. I think Mel Kiper had him in the top 10 as a left tackle. I've seen some people say he can play center. Eventually, he's going to be an inside player at center. For me, he's a guard because he doesn't have the measurables that I look for in my left tackles. Although athletically, he's a guy that can play left tackle, in my opinion. So if you want to bring him in and put him at left tackle and make sure he fails there before you move him to left guard, I'd be okay with that as well. But we're talking about a guy, a 3-year starter. He's played 37 games at Northwestern. At one point, he started 30 consecutive games. So durability is a key here with him. He's a guy that he's versatile. He's played both left and right tackle, 3-time All Big Ten, 0 sacks allowed, 1 quarterback hit, 6 quarterback hurries in his entire collegiate career. Again, we talked about his athletic ability. He's got the lateral quickness, good feet, ability to spring out of his stance to get into those second level blocks. Run blocking, again, I see that quickness. I see hip flexibility. That allows him to go ahead and run the field, connect on linebackers both in space and when he elevates to that second level. I like the way he flips his hips into the gaps to be able to seal off that backside pursuit on those zone run plays. Athletic blocker who can execute those reach blocks, but not only execute them, but also maintain those blocks as he is moving laterally. In terms of pass blocking, he's got quick feet to be able to kick slide and reach his set point and cut off the angle to the outside rusher. He got a lot of acclaim in this game against Ohio State, where he pretty much didn't manhandle him, but he had a pretty good game against the kid from Ohio State last year, Chase Young. So again, quick feet, sets wide in terms of pass pro, good balance, knee bend, extends, locks out his arms, maintains that chest integrity, and yet keeps his shoulders square to the pass rusher. So this is a guy that, like I said, plays left tackle in college. Measurables for me, I think I see him better fit inside a guard. You want to put him at tackle, let him play there, see if he makes it, great. But not, I think eventually he's going to end up at tackle. Now, I see a first round with him. Niel, I think you had him in a third round, if I'm not mistaken.
I've got him 2, 3. I'm all over the board with this kid. To be honest with you, I could see him being taken in the first round. I could see him anywhere on day 2. I don't think he's going to last to day 3. I think this kid's position versatility is absurd because of what he did in Northwestern and where he can project to the next level. You know, in terms of guys that could go ahead and come in and play all 5 positions, I think this is one of those guys that could potentially do that, right? I think Rashawn Slater is a dude that, while he may ultimately be an inside guy, he could definitely get you out of trouble on the edge. You know, cover you for a quarter, cover you for a half, cover you for a game if need be, because of injury, whatever the case may be, depth concerns. Position versatility to me is like one of those big time, attributes that, offensive linemen bring to the table that's so valuable. You look at guys like Elton Jenkins from Mississippi State that, I think he's in his second year and he's like one of the best offensive linemen in the league now. He's a similar type of dude. I mean, Rashawn Slater doesn't have that same type of length, but when it comes to position versatility, a guy that played tackle in college, that is now playing left guard in the NFL, that has also played center during his career and done in all those 3 positions at a very high level. You just don't have the empirical data that Rashawn Slater could play inside. But I think that what he has shown so far lends you to believe that he can project inside and be a valuable player. I think the other thing about it too is that this kid's a classic, Fitz Northwestern kid. When you hear Fitz talk about this kid, Fitz says, he's special. And when you hear Fitz say a kid's special, then, the kid's special, man. Mm-hmm. He's another guy where I was hoping he was going to be a Senior Bowl guy, but unfortunately he's not there. I thought that was going to be huge to get an idea of his measurables, how he stacks up, practicing at different positions across the offensive line, something that we haven't seen, like I said. We're hopefully going to get some shots of him in his pro day. The measurables from his pro day are going to be out there, and that's really going to give us a really good idea of where the hell this kid's going to, position himself, as we head into April.
Yeah, for me, I mean, with his negatives, it's really just nitpicking. I mean, obviously the measurables for me are key to project that left tackle. But I mean, I put down like he's not a road grader. He's not a guy that's going to be piling guys, pile driving guys backwards. And he's not one of those guys. He's a more of a, he's got a good solid play strength, but he's not one of those guys that's going to be blowing guys consistently off the line of scrimmage. So that's one of the negatives I put on him. And in pass pro, I don't know if you noticed this, Niel, but he's more susceptible to his inside shoulder. Whenever he got beat, he's more towards the inside. So I think that's all coachable. That's something that can be fixed. It's not, and I'm telling you, I was being nitpicky here, but definitely a guy that if I saw him, if he was at 6'5" with 30, 33 plus 34-inch arms, I'd say left tackle all day. However, I don't think he's going to come in that. I think he's coming in around 6'3", maybe 6'2.5" or something like that. And I just don't know if he's got the length to play left tackle.
All right, let's move on and talk about Landon Dickerson. Niel, why don't you start us off with Dickerson?
They always say the best ability is availability, right, guys? Landon Dickerson, although he had that ACL, this guy is such a competitor that he suited up for that game, stood out there for the coin toss, and put himself in the game towards the end, just so that he could say he played, during the national championship game. I love that. I absolutely love that toughness. I mean, you always got to balance, intelligence with toughness, but I love that toughness. He's a guy that measured in down there in Mobile at 6'6" on the dot, 326, massive hands at approaching 10.5, big arms, 32.5, 81-inch wingspan. He was a transfer from Florida State. And, he was a Remington Trophy winner, unanimous first team All-American. The kid just loves to play, loves to compete. And you can see that in the way that he goes about his business. I absolutely love that about him. I really think the biggest question about this dude is, how well is he going to recover from the knee? And where does he fall in the draft if he does? Is going to be the questions. The size, the length, the toughness, physicality, the team captain, leadership stuff, intelligence. As far as intangibles, about as much of a full package as you can get with a center. It's just, with the knee, how's that going to heal? And, how much is that going to drop him, come April?
Yeah, for me with this kid, and it's funny you mentioned availability, and I think that's my thing is red flags. Those 3 seasons at FSU, all 3 ended with injuries. And now, of course, he tore his ACL in the SEC championship game. So for me right there, that medical red flags, that's something that I don't know if I want to touch with. But in terms of on the field, Niel hit on the head. The guy's a competitor. This is a guy that's got position versatility. He can play right guard. He's played center. He's a high football character. I mean, this is a future team captain. I mean, that's how much this guy is respected, not only on the offensive line, but the whole team. If you saw the game in the SEC championship when he tore his ACL, the whole team came off the bench when he was on the cart and came in and just, dabbed his shoulder up because, they all love him. I mean, this is one of those leaders. Very good size. Niel hit on it, 6'6", 326. Plus, he has that thick frame, right, with that big chest. Solid at the point of contact, uses his strong hands to out leverage and turn defenders, rolls his hips. And this is a guy that can drive 300-pound men off their spot. So, he's got that play strength, that point of contact guy who can reset the line of scrimmage. So these are all things I love about this kid. But it's those medical red flags, and there's some lateral agility issues that I have with him. So I'm not sure how much he'll be able to, hold up in pass protection. He's what I call one of those phone booth blockers, a guy that if you give him a confined area to block, he can probably do a good job. But if you ask him to get outside the confined area, he might not have the athletic ability laterally to be able to hold up in pass pro. But going north and south, the kid looks pretty smooth in that aspect of it. So, but yeah, I mean, for me, on the field, high football character, terrific kid, power player, versatile, but just the durability concerns for me are really what knocked him down for me from a possible first, second round to maybe even third round grade.
For those of you watching on the video portion of this, look at the way this guy finishes blocks. I love
it's nasty.
He's pulling here. He's just taking people all the way down on this next clip here. He's at the left tackle position, and he just drives his guy, 5, 10, 15 yards downfield, and then onto the ground.
Look at all going all the way back to the high school tape.
Yeah, this is high school clip. You know that, right?
Well, high school.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So that must have been his recruiting tape from high school. So when he first joined Florida, but amazing guy, even when he was a high school player. So pretty cool. All right, Danny, why don't you take us to the next player on your list?
Let's see. A guy that it's a guy that I love. Trey Smith from Tennessee. Talk about a high character guy. This guy is off the charts, off the field. He's already graduated. This guy leads charity coach drives. He speaks to youth groups. He won the inaugural Fritz Pollard Trophy. He was a Jason Witten the Collegiate Man of the Year. But what he does on the field is just as impressive. It's 6'5", 331 pounds, almost 34-inch arms. This is a kid that played left tackle and then had, unfortunately, blood clots that were pretty serious. He missed a year, I want to say, and then when he came back, they moved him left guard. And he's just as dominant. 2-time All-SEC first-team selection. This guy's played over 2,500 snaps on offense and only allowed 1 sack in his final 2 seasons. So this is a guy that produces on the field. Very good combination of size and length. We talked about some of that already. Solid athletic ability. This is the guy that you notice when he springs out of his stance. This is a guy that can not only just come out and fire out. He's got that sun movement out of his stance, but also he moves nicely laterally along the line of scrimmage. Has that short area burst where you can see him kind of accelerate, whether it's in like 5, 6, 7 yards, you can see him accelerate, especially get to those second and those third level defenders on his when he's out in an open field. Run blocking, I love him as a run blocker. He's a very good run blocker, especially on power blocking. Possesses that good play strength to be able to move bodies off the line of scrimmage. He has what I call throw guys out of the club type of strength. Just grabs them, contours them, turns them, and gets them out of the way. When he traps or pulls, he'll come out on the edge defender, and he will look to annihilate guys on the edge. And you see some of that nastiness too when he's out like on screens or on counters where he's leaning in front. He gets to that second and third level guys. I mean, you see that nastiness. He wants to bury guys, so I love that about him as well, that toughness too. So in terms of pass pro, demonstrates solid pop and drop ability, sets up wide and balanced, quick feet, lateral agility, allows him to be able to move his feet and mirror and pass pro. So again, this is a guy that I think gives you position versatility, has played left tackle, can play left guard. Obviously the blood clot thing is something that we need to look into. It could be a medical red flag, but This is a guy that I have a first round grade on, and he may end up going in the bottom half of the first round. He may end up going in the second round, but I'm telling you, this guy's a day one starter, guys. As long as he's healthy, he's a day one starter.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. You talk about position versatility. He played. He played as a left tackle his freshman and sophomore year at Tennessee. Left guard as a junior and senior. He's played multiple positions down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He's had a great week, by the way.
Yeah.
If you guys have seen the coaches tape of the one-on-one drills and the team periods, he has had a great week. And he's I think fixed a few things about the way that he plays that I thought were negatives, in a sense that I think sometimes he can stop moving his feet, sometimes he can get caught in quicksand. Ultimately, I don't have him as a first-round guy only because I don't think he's as athletically gifted as you'd probably want a first-round guard to be. But I love a lot about how the hell this kid plays the game, and that's been something I've loved about him ever since his high school days. He was one of those dudes that was so fun to watch. Now granted, he was a man amongst boys in terms of level of competition out of Jackson, Tennessee. But he played with a mean streak on every single play was a highlight. It was so much fun to watch. He was a pound of fist on the table type of dude. And, he only carried that with him, throughout the course of his, college career. Good dude off the field, mean dude on the field. I love that stuff about offensive linemen. But it's just, the laziness with his technique at time was the only reason why I really had any sort of negatives on him. And of course, like I said, he's not a freakishly gifted, athlete when it comes down to it. But, not to say that he's a bad athlete. Like he's a really good athlete. I think he's probably a second or third round, type of athlete when it's all said and done. But again, like the best thing about this kid, I think, is his play strength, his functional strength, that throw dudes out of the club, type of strength. When he gains control, he can dominate. And I think he's only going to get better and continue to grow in the pros with better coaching.
I'm excited by him. Trey Smith out of Tennessee is a guy to keep an eye on. Niel, why don't you take us to the next player you'd like to highlight for us?
I think Aaron Banks out of Notre Dame is probably the next guy on my list.
Notre Dame guy.
Oh, take it easy there. Dan.
No, I love this kid. Don't.
Aaron Banks, man, he measured in down in Mobile at 6'0", 5'3", 338. Redshirt junior of Notre Dame, 10 and an eighth inch hands, 33 and an eighth arms, 82 wingspan, consensus All-American. Another one of these guys that boasts longevity. 31 straight starts, 38 games played at Notre Dame. Another big body dude that's hard to move and plays with a ton of physicality in the run and passing game. I think he's productive and efficient. He could really open up some space, able to redirect with ease, gets great extension with his arms. He has great length there. Obviously, we talked about a 33 and an eighth inch arm. I don't think he's the most fluid guy necessarily at the second level or downfield, but he can function. And the Rose Bowl, there was that one play that you saw this guy really open up and run downfield. I mean, the big boy can move. Had a really good game versus Alabama, I thought. I think he can improve picking up blitzes. He could wind up on either side of the center at the next level. And really, when you look at the drills down in Mobile, he really did look a hell of a lot more, I want to say, natural playing right guard than he did playing left guard. Just in drills, just in team stuff. I mean, that's really nothing to really, go off of as far as gospel goes. But I think I said a couple weeks ago when we started talking about the interior offensive line, my guess was that once he gets to the next level, he's going to start off at right guard because, I think his athletic and physical attributes, sort of suggested that. And I think you saw a little bit of that, proof in the pudding, this week down in Mobile. But you get the feeling he's an awesome teammate too, though. You love the stuff like after plays, after scores. Often, he's the guy covering downfield, picking up his guys off the floor, lifting them up in the end zone. You love a lot of stuff about this kid. And if you ever heard the kid speak, he's a very well-spoken kid. I think he's a second-round talent, in my opinion. And it's going to be hard to pass him up if he's available.
Speaking of passing up, I made this joke on Twitter. If you could pick an entire offensive line with the first pick of the first round or a first round pick, I would pick the Notre Dame offensive line. With the 20th pick, the Chicago Bears, Aldo Gandia, and the Chicago Bears select the entire Notre Dame line.
Hey, you won't get any complaints from me, man. Those boys can play. I think we've talked about four of them already. The only one we haven't talked about is the center, I believe, right? And your boy Hainsey is it Hainsey or Hainsey?
Hainsey.
He's doing well at the Senior Bowl, man.
Hell of a week.
Yeah, he's playing guard, which is where I think he's going to end
all
up.
5 positions.
Yeah, and he's playing some center, and he's playing right tackle. Honestly, I'm left tackle, yeah, but I saw him center
Today,
right guard,
he's on the left tackle a little bit today.
Okay.
Here's the thing about those guys,
great.
though, their strength coach is a guy by the name of Matt Balis, right? Matt Balis, I was with him at Mississippi State for a short period of time. You want to talk about a dude that just oozes toughness and energy is Matt Balis. There was a thing that Mississippi State players had called "We were Balis made," and when you talk about the toughest teams at Mississippi State when I was there were the teams that were underneath Matt Balis, and I think you see that emulating out into this Notre Dame offensive line, some of these defensive linemen, the way that this team has played, which has been a hell of a lot different than I think during the course of the past 10 to 20 years. They play with a different kind of toughness, with a different kind of energy about them. And I think the way this offensive line plays is directly attributed to how Matt Balis coaches his guys, the way he runs them in the strength room, the kind of program he puts them in. And toughness has been a common theme across the board with all these guys.
Yeah, all 4 of these guys, calm tough is what I put down on all these guys. The willingness to bury their guys, some nastiness and all that stuff. And Banks, you talked about it, man. His size, dude. His size inside that for an interior lineman at 6'5", 338. This guy's tailor made for a power running scheme. And he's a solid athlete too. And what I like about him, Neil, you notice he keeps his balance, man. It's like when all the garbage is around him by the line of scrimmage, this guy's never on the ground. He always manages to keep his balance, which I love, especially for a guy that size, that big. He engages quickly in terms of as a run blocker, engages with urgency. He works to gain position, utilizing that strong grip to be able to twist and turn and steer defenders. He's very effective pulling, getting out of in front of, springing out to on those wham and those trap blocks. He contacts the defender, and he follows through, he drives his feet and tries to eliminate the guy, from his sight. So I love the way he run blocks as well. So definitely a kid that I think has helped himself as well. I think also, I agree with you. I think he's in that second round range. He might drop third round. I'm not sure, but I think he's really done a great job. Not only his tape looks good, but I think what he's done this week so far at the Senior Bowl has also propelled him. And I think second round is a nice target area for someone like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Danny, take us to the next player on your list of interior offensive linemen that we're highlighting here. And again, while that is not presently a need for the Chicago Bears, you've got to do the homework on these guys because they could become available in a trade in a year or two. They could have some problems and they are cut. And so you want to have your all of your scouting resources able to talk about this guy, evaluate this guy, and so forth. They may end up being a really good player and be available in free agency 4 or 5 years down the line. So you need to know about these guys. So this stuff is invaluable information. Who do you got, Danny?
Well, this is a kid that got me, honest here. When I was going to look him up, I was like, I wasn't really having high expectations of him. But man, the more I watched him, the more I like this kid. And this is Elijah Vera Tucker from USC. He's a guy in high school. He played offensive tackle and defensive end. In 2019 was his first full year as a starter. Again, we're talking about guys that got some, position versatility. He started all 13 games at left guard in 2019. Was all Pac-12 second team. Was named the USC Offensive Lineman of the Year. And in this last season, they kicked him out to left tackle, and he played well. He played actually real well. With him is solid size. He's about 6'3". He might be a little bit maybe in the 6'4" range, but I think he's 6'3", 310, 315. He's got this quick feet and solid arm length. This is an athletic blocker, and another guy who's sudden out of his stance, displaying those good initial quickness. Run blocking, engages quickly post snap with that good leg drive to be able to create that push in the run game to get the position and to sustain it as well. He's athletic, quickness, and be able to, is evident, I should say, on combo blocks. You see him again, sudden out of his stance, chips, and he gets out to the next level, releases upfield, and gets to those athletic linebackers, and he sustains those blocks, which is something typically you don't see with left tackles. With guys in the second level linebackers are quicker. They slip them, they get by them. When Vera Tucker gets them, he blocks them out. Pass pro, I love him in pass pro. Sets quickly with good balance, knee bend, and he's a guy that can left and right. He's got lateral agility. He can mirror in pass pro as well. He's got the quickness to be able to handle any sort of counter spin to inside move to his inside shoulder. So is this definitely a guy, the more I watched, the more I liked him. Now, again, he's a guy that I probably project his best position could be inside at guard. He did play well at left tackle, but I think eventually he's probably going to, his best position is inside at guard. So I'm curious what Niel thinks about him.
I'm pretty much right there with you. I think his size dictates a move inside. But I mean, the thing with him is that I love guys that love to compete. And the biggest plus with him is that, he was one of these guys that had all the intentions of sitting out this year. And the Pac-12 decided that they were, going to go ahead and play some football. And he came back right away and, wanted to go ahead and compete. I love guys that want to play. This is a dude that I think that there's things that he can improve about, his game. He can improve his anchor. I think at times he can get overtaken. You don't see a whole lot of power there, in my opinion. But he can play with leverage. He has great feet. With his athletic ability, he can eliminate a lot of minuses, which is something that you really look for a lot of times with offensive linemen, because you're always going to get out of position. Can you eliminate minuses? Can you take back can you recover from being out of position a lot of times and make a play? This kid has some really nice athletic ability, and I think he's got a hell of a high ceiling. He's probably a round 2 to 3 guy. He's definitely a second day guy in my opinion. We have him listed off the USC website as 6'4", 315. What those actual measurables are going to be is going to be interesting going forward. But he's got a lot of intrigue, and again, position versatility. Danny, you touched on it. Left guard 19, left tackle in 20. He was a 6th man in 2018. He played all over the ball. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's a really intriguing player. That he's going to be one that's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of his pro day.
Right. He's a guy, like I said, the more I watch him, man, I'm like, this guy can play. And he's got, you said, Niel, he's got that nastiness to him as well, especially when he's in the second and third level. You look at the Barry guys again, and I love that about him too. So, pass pro is good. Run blocking, he can probably get better at, but he's probably going to need a little bit more stronger. He's got some more room in that frame to add some more muscle, I think. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think he can get stronger at the point of attack. But man, yeah, this is a kid that the more I watch, like I said, the more I watch it, the more I liked him.
All right, Niel, take us to your next guy.
Speaking of guys that are just tough and physical and full of ass kicking, Wyatt Davis. I think this kid had real round 1 potential before he got hurt at the last game of the year there. He's a kid that measures in, again, another 6'4", 315-pound kid based on what they have listed on Ohio State's website. Second-year starter, first and second team All-American in 2019, depending on where you looked. Only like 15 pressures and no sacks. I mean, this kid's a stout build, strong dude, great functional strength, shows power. He's a mauler in the ground game. He's a bulldozer that creates some massive holes. And he also loves quickness too. His quickness and agility. He's got great feet and balance as well. So he's got those athletic attributes as well. And the kid looks for finishing opportunities. You can find some clips of this guy absolutely burying guys in the ground. Right. I think there's still work with this kid to be done on pass pro. He's got some coaching to be done at the next level. But, in terms of guys with high ceiling and toughness and physicality, I think he's going to be a contributor at worst in his first year. And again, I say that, all things being equal as far as his health and everything else. But I do love that, I talked about Elijah Vera Tucker coming back to play after either deciding to sit out or declaring, whatever the case may be. Same thing with this kid. The kid declared he was going to, sit out the year, prepare for the draft. After the Big Ten decided to go ahead and play after all, as a competitor, kid that loves to compete. Obviously, he's a team first guy, came back, played the entire year, put his, obviously his career on the line, got hurt the last game of the year. Hopefully it's not that serious. Hopefully he comes back and, is able to, get back to full health and be the player that he was at Ohio State. But I love the way this kid plays. Toughness, physicality, agility, quickness. He's a mauler, finishes guys. He's got a lot of the things you look for. Checks a lot of boxes.
He's number 52 on these clips, by the way. Go ahead. Take it away, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, Niel hit it all on the dot there. I mean, but the other thing about this kid is that he's a former high school basketball player and was obviously a 5-star recruit. His grandfather is Hall of Famer Willie Davis from the Packers. So that's he's got some lineage there. But yeah, I mean, for me right now, he's a better run blocker than a pass blocker, and like Niel said, he's nasty in terms of run blocking. I think he's probably tailor-made for a scheme, because I see a lot of those inside zone blockings, and he's burying these guys. So I think he's tailor-made for those zone blocking schemes. The only thing with him is I didn't see much versatility. I mean, he only played right guard. Is he someone that can swing over to the left side and play some left guard? We haven't seen that at Ohio State. So is he a guy that's strictly just going to be a right guard at the next level? We don't know, but he's definitely going to be a guard. And the injury was kind of weird because I know he couldn't put any weight on his foot. So I don't know if it was an ankle, an Achilles, a knee injury. I'm not sure what it was. And I haven't seen anything in terms of, clarifying what the injury exactly was, but it'll be curious to see how those medicals come back. But yeah, this is a guy, a 2-year starter, a guy you could probably plug and play right now at right guard at the next level. So high on this kid, very, very high on this kid. But that's the only reason why, I have him like first round, second round. I'm not quite sure, injury wise and pass blocking. He still has some deficiencies there that he's got to get coached up on. But definitely a better run blocker than pass blocker for me right now.
Plug and play. I love that term. Danny, take us to the next player on your list.
All right, let me see here. Let me get a guy that's a little
sexy.
Well, I don't know if this guy's sexy, but Deontay Brown from Alabama. I think the last thing you'd call him is sexy. He's about 6'3", 364 pounds. This is a guy, a 3-year starter. He's made 25 starts, played in over 47 games, a 2020 first team All SEC. He played in 757 snaps this past season, missed only 2 assignments, committed only 4 penalties, allowing a half a sack, 1 pressure, and 5 quarterback hurries. The thing about intriguing about this guy is he's 6'3", 364. He's got a sloppy body, right? And what surprises the hell out of me is he's athletic as I don't want to swear here, but he's freaking athletic. And he's a guy that when he bounces out of his stance, he gets out to the second level. And when he gets to his second fit run linebackers, he annihilates guys. So, definitely a guy that intrigues me in terms of his ability to be able to be a dominator up at the line of scrimmage, a guy that can, help reset the line of scrimmage, move guys off their spots, athletic, more athletic than I thought he was going to be. So he intrigues me a lot. So far, I think he had a rough first day at the Senior Bowl. I see him tripping over things. He was a little late in terms of timing and everything like that. But yesterday, I haven't seen today's tape yet so far, but yesterday he kind of acquitted himself better there, especially in the one-on-ones and some in the 9-on-7 drills and all that stuff. So definitely a guy that he's highly thought of. Just for me, I don't know, Niel, that's why I wanted to bring him up. Like for me, he's more of a day 3, round 4 guy. So I'm curious in terms of, even though I just rattled off some of the positives about him, it's just the sloppiness. So there's some times where he's a tad bit late in terms of recognizing in pass rush situations, a free defender coming at the quarterback. He's late to react there. So his awareness isn't up to speed in terms of how I like to see it. So that's why I'm kind of, hedging there, day 2, day 3. Right now I got a day 3 grade on him. So we'll see what happens.
I got a late day 2 grade. I have him probably in the 3rd round is where I have him. There's a little bit of that may be biased. There's another kid that I loved ever since his high school days. He's from Decatur, Alabama, not too far away from where we were in Starkville. He was a kid that was really kind of like under the radar until us in Alabama went ahead and offered him, pretty early in the process. But, he's a kid that, ever since, he's had, film and highlights on him, has been a really big dude that has a really good feet. He can really pick him up and put him down. He showed physicality. He shows toughness. He showed the ability to pull, the ability to be athletic. I do think he lacks a little bit of hip fluidity. I think he can play with better leverage at times. And again, I mean, he's just a massive, big, girthy dude that maybe just his size disallows him from bending and getting natural leverage. In a lot of times, he does need to reconstruct his body, and we're not going to lie about that. Right. I love the fact that he and I use the same sort of adjective with him and Aaron Banks. They're just immovable mountains. Like they're just big, immovable dudes. He moves his feet well, decent laterally, but I mean, the big thing about him is that too is he's a great character kid. He comes from a 2-parent home, great family. He's always been a well-mannered dude. Never a guy that would even be remotely one you'd think of to embarrass the program or the franchise off the field. Hard worker, blue collar. He just gets after it. And I mean, the kid loves football. So, I mean, I really don't. I think that you plug in the intangibles with a lot of the things that he does on the field from a play style standpoint, his demeanor, how athletic he is for how big he is, and who knows, maybe once he reconstructs his body a little bit, gets himself down to like 330 to 350. It's still massive, but let's just be honest. This kid's genetic makeup is just big, right? Yeah. Maybe once he gets himself down, loses, about 20, 30 pounds, 10, 20, 30 pounds. Might be a little bit different of a player from an athletic standpoint, but I mean, again, let's not pretend like the kid's not athletic. He can get it done.
He is huge, and just don't call him late for dinner, man, because this guy looks like he can put it away. But yeah, love his size and good makeup. All right, Niel, I'll stay with you, and why don't you pick another player to discuss? Again, interior offensive lineman is our focus for this portion of the show.
Yeah, the third center that I had on my list, which may not be the third center after what we're seeing down in Mobile, Alabama anymore, but Trey Hill out of Georgia, another dude that I loved in high school. You talk about dancing bears. Trey Hill is a dancing bear. Trey Hill was a dude that was he was pretty much raw for life, as far as a kid with no technique and just really played the game with physicality and athleticism and toughness. This kid is listed as 6'4", 330. If you see him on the hoof, you wouldn't guess it. Outside of the fact that he's just a muscular, big bone dude, he's definitely not a sloppy body kid. He's a kid that came into Georgia. He started 26 out of 36 games. He missed the last 2 games this year due to injury. And UGA alternates their captains as well. He was a captain at one point this year, so you know that he has the intangible of leadership behind him. I talked about his high school evaluation. He was a definition of just big athletic dude. I think, the thing that he hasn't quite figured out yet is how to stay on blocks. I think that's a coaching thing. He came into Georgia as a raw specimen with zero technique. Is he still learning? Possibly. But I think that's going to be a learning curve continuing to go forward. But I think the reason why I have him as a day 2 guy is just because a lot of times you just can't pass up on big and athletic. And as a kid that does have all the athletic tools that you want in an interior offensive lineman, whether he stays at center, whether he moves, to the left or right side of guard, as an interior dude, he's big, he's massive, he's athletic, he can move his feet, he's a dancing bear, like I said. I love this kid. I would definitely, go ahead and quote unquote overdraft him in the second day, knowing that there's still a little bit of work to be done on him.
He indeed is massive. Danny, your thoughts on Trey Hill?
Yeah, pretty much echoing the same things. I love the versatility, guy that can play center and guard, 2-year starter. Again, another guy, with a big size at 6'3", 320, but moves, quicker than anticipated. And he's got that competitive toughness that we're talking about, the guy that will bury and finish his blocks. I love, if I see a center or any offensive lineman just burying and finishing his defenders, he's right away, he's on my list as the guys to keep an eye on. In terms of his play strength, he's solid at the point of attack. He can sustain and keep his blocks. I like the way he plays with his pad levels. He gets them low and he gets underneath the pad levels of a defender and he out leverages them. So that's good, especially for interior offensive lineman, namely a center. He's got some gap power ability in terms of, he's a guy that's got ability to invert defensive tackles, bend them backwards at the line of scrimmage. So he's got that raw power in his strike in his hands. Definitely a guy that like Niel said, at that next level, you see him kind of being a tad late, reaching those second level blocks. Not as explosive in terms of getting it when he gets to those second level blocks in terms of annihilating those guys. So maybe a better angle, maybe just getting better shape, getting out there quicker and faster. But yeah, definitely a guy, if you bring him in, we're talking about position versatility, guys played at a big time program, probably a guy that, start at center for you. I don't know about day 1, but definitely, early on in his career.
I know you guys haven't finalized where we're going to put these guys in our draft board, what round we think they should be valued at. But I'm guessing right about now is when we're talking about day 3 candidates. Danny, who do you have?
So day 3 guys, the guy I have right now, and I'm curious to see what Niel thinks of this guy, is Ben Cleveland from Georgia. Big, burly guy, 6'6", 354 pounds, 33-inch arms, 2-year starter. Talk about his size. He's strong at the point of contact. This is what I call a people mover. This is a guy that provides that physical presence. Someone that'll get guys off their spot. He's a guy, more of a north-south blocker, power blocker for me in the run game. He's a guy that drives his legs on contacts and helps, we talked about earlier, resetting that line of scrimmage. Possesses that power grip to be able to turn, control, steer at the line of scrimmage. In pass pro, it's a lot of hit or miss. I like the way he anchors in terms of, setting a wide base, using that strong hand grip to be able to latch on to the center or the chest plate of a defender and being able to control a bull rush. But he's got, issues in terms of athletic prowess, lateral agility and all that stuff. So limited quickness. He's more, again, a guy that as a pass blocker, I see more like one of the guys like that confined area. I call them those phone booth blockers. Guys can only go so far. So, for me, he's limited athletically. We see that stiffness in the lower half, especially when he's out in front, out in that second level. There's a lot of times he just whiffs at those second level linebackers. He just can't reach them. For me, he's a guy that gives you some nice backup versatility. So I see him more as a guy that's a day 3 guy, a guy you could probably bring in as a backup. So I'm curious if Niel sees him the same way.
I had him kind of late day 3, 6th, 7th round guys where I had him. Love his size, 6'6", 6'0", 6'3", 354, 9 6/8 hands, 33-inch arms, 79 1/8 wingspan. And again, another guy I liked in high school, and now he's being talked about as an NFL guy. Funny how that happens. Like him even now more with that great big beard. I mean, you gotta love glorious facial accessories on offensive linemen, boys. That is a mug shot and a half, right? On and off starter for 3 years. Finally, this year he's full time at right guard. Got All-American recognition. We talk about the great size. I really think that his size, his competitiveness, his mean streak, demeanor that he's supposed to have, that I don't necessarily see on every play, play in and play out, but you do see it in flashes. Those are the best things about him, in my opinion. I think everything else, Danny, you touched on it. His agility and quicks, his ability to function at the second level, some of his fundamentals and technique, or can all those things can be a little bit mundane. Even sometimes I feel like his strength and power can be a bit mundane, and maybe that's because I watch him after I watch guys like Trey Smith and Wyatt Davis, right, and these guys that just go and kick ass on every single play. But he's got some redeeming qualities in his size and his competitiveness and his toughness and all those types of things. I think he's had an okay week. He didn't necessarily stick out. He didn't necessarily put me to sleep though either. I'm going to watch him a little bit heavier. I didn't get a chance to watch his side of the ball from practice today, but obviously after we get off this show today, I'm going to go back and watch some more tape, and then obviously we're going to watch the game on Saturday like we're little kids. But he's an interesting prospect. I see him as a late day 3 guy.
Yeah, even when he pulls out, he gets out to pull and the trap, it's lumbering. It's a guy that you could see doesn't have the foot quickness to be able to get to his blocks at times. So and from all I can gather, he's a great guy, great kid. Just athletically, it just doesn't have it for me. But he has a size. He has that point of attack, power, and strength where he can, if you need him to come in and replace your starter who got injured or start for a game or two, definitely a guy would give you some quality depth.
Okay, that's Cleveland we just talked about. Niel, you got a day 3 prospect you'd like to showcase?
How about Robert Jones? We got to keep it Chicago a little bit, right? Don't we? Yeah. We got to talk about our Chicago guy.
There you go.
6'0", 4'2", 319 measured in, 9 5/8 hands, 33-inch arm length, 79-inch wingspan from Rockford East High School. He was a junior college kid. Came in to Middle Tennessee from Highland Community College, where he played left guard. Started 18 out of 20 games over the 2 seasons he was there. Has that standard offensive guard build, thick, powerful looking lowers. Has a lot of power. He can manhandle opposing players. Has a lot of nasty. Plays hard. He reminds me of Fetty in a few ways with his body type and how thick and powerful he can be. I think he's got better a lower body than Ifedi does. He can move his feet better than Ifedi.
Mhm.
I think he can come in and probably be a starting right guard right away, could potentially move his way into left guard. But he's another one of those guys that, you look at what he's done, this week in Mobile. He's played a few different positions. He's looked stout and smooth. He's had great hands, great use of his hands. He's been strong, physical, and mean during drills. He's a kid that has really moved up my board with the past couple days that we've had him on tape in Mobile. I don't know if you feel the same way, Danny, but he started off as sort of like a late day 3 guy. I have him early day 3, possibly moving up to day 2.
Yeah, he's impressed me as well down in Mobile. His ability, like you talked about, his power at the point of attack, his ability to move laterally, some agility. They even had him playing right tackle. I saw that yesterday's tape, and he had him at right tackle. He didn't do too well right tackle, so I think guard obviously is going to be the position for him eventually in the pros. But yeah, he's definitely opened up some eyes. Show the ability, like I said, there nastiness to be able to throw guys on the ground. That strong grip I talk about, grabbing guys and just tossing them. So definitely a guy that's moved up. I'm probably thinking around 4 probably is what I'm looking at right now. That still might be high on some cases because this is a guy that's coming from low level competition. There's gonna be some adjustment, but like I said, athletically, he's shown the ability to be able to, to handle that against some of the best college football players in the nation. So, definitely a kid that's helped his stock at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I was watching him. What was it? The first day of practice, and boy, he looked like a monster. And he had some blemishes in his practice reps there, but he looks like a great developmental type pick for a day 3. Danny, back to you. Any other day 3 interior offensive linemen that you'd like to share a few thoughts with before we talk about, in general, our Senior Bowl guys that you've been impressed with so far?
Yeah, the one guy is Jack Anderson. This kid from Texas Tech. Guy who's a 3-year starter at right guard. He was a this guy's a highly touted recruit. He chose Texas Tech over schools like FSU, Georgia, Stanford, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas. Only played 3 games in 2019 after suffering a season-ending shoulder injury. So this is a kid at 6'4", 310. Shorter arms than what I would like. So his future might be at center. However, he's got solid size, interior offensive lineman, possesses the athletic frame, the solid build with good feet and lateral agility. This guy's a flexible, natural bender. This is a guy that's athletic in the open field and an easy mover. We talked about the zone scheme, the inside zone, the outside zone. This is a guy I think fits in nicely, whether it's at center or at guard in that type of a system. I like the way he uses his hands. He's got really good hand placement. He gets right underneath the defender's armpits and gets that leverage and moves them off their spot. So I'm not sure if he has any wrestling in his background, but the way he gets leverage by using his hands, I wouldn't surprise me at all. So run blocking, he brings his feet on power, explodes into out of his stance, and when he pulls and he elevates to a second level, this is a athletic, quick kid. Definitely a guy that you can see in space that he's comfortable. He's not out of place there. So he's solid in pass pro, sets wide with a balanced stance, play with good forward lean. Athletic ability, uses his hands to allow him to be able to control, steer, can shuffle and slide his feet, mirror, all the good things. The only question is he a center or is he a guard? You play right guard at college. I think though he might be a center in the pros. So, but we'll see. About 6'4", 310. That's pretty good size.
Yeah, encroaching upon 6'5", 6046. So he's got some good size to him. 10-inch hands. You touched on some of his measurables. He did miss 9 games in 2019 with a shoulder.
Yeah,
and it seemed like he was still sort of coming back from that, from a standpoint of just trying to reestablish that strength, and just both from a natural strength and functional strength standpoint. Because a lot of times he can be a lot of fun to watch. Right, this season appeared he was still returning though. There's times of strength and power just isn't there. He gets pushed around a little bit, and you saw that this week. And that kind of concerned me a little bit. He played both, guard positions and the center position this week in practice. And there's times where he, damn near just got about run over by a more powerful dude inside. And so that's kind of concerning to me. Assuming it is just a shoulder coming back to normal and he's able to continue to build strength back in the months ahead, I think he should be in good shape in the league because, as far as his game tape, the stuff that he put on film at Texas Tech, he started all 38 games he played. And he was also expected to be a guy to declare for the draft last year before the injury, right? He's a guy that got off the ball really well with the quick feet and attacking the defenders. And he had the strength and the power on the film to move bodies and deliver good punches. And you saw him finishing the nasty and all those things that we talk about. You just wonder, like, where is he from a full health standpoint? Because you don't necessarily see that from a consistent game in, game out basis, from a rep in, rep out basis in practice this week. It's kind of concerning to me. I had him before practice this week, somewhere between 5 and 7. Right now I have him trending towards the back end of day 3, but I think he's still a guy that, could really fall anywhere in day 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's got the athletic frame where it's solid too. So I can see him adding about 10, 15 pounds of muscle, going up to about 320, 325, and not losing his athletic ability too. So there's always that potential for him to get stronger and be better at the point of contact. And it could be that shoulder injury that both you and I mentioned. He only played 3 games in 2019 due to that season-ending surgery. So maybe it's a year to recover, and he comes back and he gets a little stronger. But this definitely guy intrigues me in terms of athletic ability, his movement skills, and like I said, his use of hands for interior lineman, the way he gets leverage with his hand usage. That's always something that catches my eye when I see that.
Neil, let's wrap this up. Day 3, guys. So you had a player or two you want to mention?
Yeah, I'll bring both these guys up together because they both are, in my opinion, going to play the same position. They both have similar attributes, and they both sort of moved up the board at the same time, the same way. Drake Jackson from Kentucky, Quinn Miners from Wisconsin, Whitewater. These guys, I really had either off the board or lower on the board. In Quinn's case, I had him sort of, towards the tail end. Drake, I was still sort of in evaluation mode with him. But I think with Quinn, what you see on tape is that he just plays his ass off. He buries dudes. He gets after people's ass, that Gata mentality. And he's put together a really, really productive and board, rocket ship week as far as the way that he's, moved up his stock. He's a dude that, in practice, he's been tough and mean. He competes his ass off. He shows that he can anchor. He's quick off the ball. He's strong. He stays in control, and the thing that you notice, whether he's playing center, whether he's playing guard, once he gets a hold of you, it's like a vice grip. He doesn't let you go. He hasn't gotten beat once this week, I don't think. He has put guys on the ground. He has controlled his space. He can play in the phone booth. He can play in space. I love the way this kid competes. And, man, you got to love that belly too, man.
For sure.
Beer and cheese, man. Beer and cheese and bratwurst, man. That's all that dude's about right there. Beer, cheese, bratwurst, and toughness. But the kid's athletic as hell. I don't know if you guys saw him, dunking, flat-footed on a 10-foot rim.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what kind of athletic numbers this kid, these explosion numbers this kid puts up at his pro day. Whether it's this upcoming month or the month after. I'm really amped up about this dude. I've got him going either late day 2 or early day 3 right now.
He's jumping up for sure.
It's not like he's a small dude from a small school, man. He's just a shade over 6'3", at 6'3 1/4, 320 pounds. His hands are 10 1/4. His arm length is 33. Wingspan is 82. Like, he's got all the measurables. He's got all of the video. He's got all the toughness. He's got all the attributes. It's just a matter of, how much of a risk are you willing to take on a Division III kid? If you're Ryan Pace, right? I mean, I love everything about this kid. So my emotions right now by putting him late day 2, early day 3, I think that might be where he ends up. But man, I just love the way this kid plays. Drake Jackson sort of escalated at the same way at around the same time, same type of player. Doesn't quite have the measurables, in my opinion. No, he's just under 6'2" at 6'1", 7/8. He's 290 pounds. Small hands, bizarrely small hands at 8.5, 31 and an eighth, arm length, and 77.5 wingspan. But regardless of this dude's measurables, he's strong. He has great leverage, whether it be natural, the way that he plays, right? He has great leverage. He controls his man, locks on, grip of steel, same way as Miners. Keeps his base balanced, feet apart. There's no patty cake with him. He engages. He stays engaged until he says so. Like, both these guys play the game the same way with the same sort of attributes and the same demeanor on the field. Toughness, physicality, ass kicking, Gata mentality. I love both these guys. I kind of have these guys both in the same boat as like a late day 2, early day 3 guy.
Yeah, I got breaking news for you guys. According to Dane Brugler, I got it up here on the screen. Wisconsin Whitewater offensive guard center Quinn Morenz broke a bone in his right hand today during practice. According to sources, he played through the injury and finished practice and still plans to play in the game on Saturday. Tough dude, # Senior Bowl. That's the kind of guy you like, right?
Toughness. He's a day 2 guy all the way now. He might be a day 1 guy.
He just moved them up
first round.
How about it? He's a special guy, man. He's a special
Beer
guy.
cheese, baby.
I had never seen him other than this week. I mean, I'm not out there scouting Division III Wisconsin Whitewater, but definitely.
You don't watch all those games? I watch them every week. What are you talking about?
But man, it's like when I saw the tape, I'm like, damn, who is this guy? He's not, he's not a guy that's scared to go up against competition. He's not intimidated whatsoever. He took Patrick Jones from Pitt and he just buried him yesterday. It was a clip I think I tweeted out. I think this is the clip I tweeted out, or he just buries him, man. It's like ruthless. I'm like, dude, like, these are like, Division Power 5 conference players here, guys that, that they're all ACC and all that stuff. And he's just burying him. I mean, he doesn't care. And he plays with this attitude that, I agree that this guy has moved up. I mean, he probably went from a late day 3 to an early day 2 guy. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes second, third round now, not whatsoever. But a guy, I think that he's a guy that I like him better at guard than at center. They've been playing him at center, and I don't know if it's just because the whole he played guard at Wisconsin Whitewater, but I think center was just a thing where they were just trying to try him out there. And I don't know if it's the whole snapping the football thing. It's got some distracted, but I saw him get a little, beaten in terms of not badly, but just, he wasn't as dominant as he was at guard, especially on those one-on-one drills. So I would just leave him at guard, whether it's right guard or left guard. And I don't know if he can wear that jersey that way in the NFL. He's gonna get, fined for showing that belly like that. But definitely a guy that you add him to an offensive line, and it might take a year or two, maybe to get ready, to get up to that competition, to be at the competition. But we've seen it happen before, right? At the Senior Bowl, guys like Ali Marpet. There was another guy, just his name just I just drew a blank on him. But guys that come down from these things.
You remember Titus Howard?
Titus Howard, the guy, he went in the first round.
Alabama, he went in the first round. I was like, holy cow! I didn't even think he played that great as a first rounder at the Senior Bowl, but clearly,
it was Bill O'Brien, so we'll give it a pass.
That's true. That's a good point. And maybe that's why Deshaun Watson wants out of Texas.
Out of there, right?
You drafted him in the first round.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's every year it seems like we have a guy come from out of nowhere and just end up putting on a show, and this year it's this kid from Wisconsin Whitewater.
Very cool. All right, is there any other player that you really absolutely must share some thoughts with regarding day 3, Danny?
I mean, the only other guy that I have here is a local kid, Kendrick Green from Illinois. He's a guy that again, we're talking about a guy that's got possession versatility. He's durable. He finished his college career making 33 straight starts. He's a guy that's second team All Big Ten this past season. He's a consensus All Big Ten first team. I'm sorry, second team All American, consensus All Big Ten first team. He started games at both left guard and center. So we're talking about that, the position versatility. We're talking about a guy that is more quicker than strong. He's a guy that, average size for an interior blocker, but he's got that good quickness, that sudden movement to be able to, get off at the snap and get into his defender and get his hands on them and be able to torque and move. He's a guy that I see him as a center at the next level. A guy that's got good lateral quickness, good agility. Again, another kid that when on those combo blocks, he's able to chip and release at a second level, get to his linebacker on those run fits and be able to, screen and move him out of the way. So this is the guy that I think is getting some, not getting as much attention as I think he should probably get, but we're looking at a guy probably, 4th, 5th round, something like that. That definitely is a local kid that I think is going to end up being drafted. Day 3.
Look at this. I love it when a player, after he's done blocking his man, just finds somebody else to block. Look at this.
Yeah, that's called looking for work.
Boom. I love that.
Yep. Looking for work. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. All right. I'm glad you brought up that name. Niel, same thing with you. Any last guy you want to give a pat out to?
Another guy that's really impressed me this week is my boy Robert Hainsey out of Notre Dame. He has played all 5 positions across the offensive line this week, and it's done really well. He's competed his ass off. He's been really strong as a competitor. Hasn't gotten beat really. And I think the thing I love most about this kid, and I wrote it down. What was the word that I used? He's machine-like. He's a technician. He's so fundamentally solid, and he plays with all the arm length. But I mean, he is so fundamentally solid that it allows him to be efficient as a blocker, even though he doesn't have the gifted athleticism as a lot of these other guys have. And I think that's what makes him particularly valuable. He played his ass off as a right tackle in Notre Dame this year. He's a guy that I think we both talked about moving inside at the next level. I still look at him as being probably a little bit on the early side of day 3, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 5th round. But I mean, he's a guy that, I mean, I loved him the first time we talked about him when we went over tackles. I think I like him even a little bit more, just showing off that position versatility and, really competing and showing that, he can hang with guys that may be a little bit more powerful, maybe a little bit more athletic. The way that he plays, the fundamentals and technique and toughness and power that he uses, his strength. I keep talking about, these Notre Dame guys and their strength and toughness, Bayless made. That's his kid's game, man. Like he's just a dirty, gritty dude.
Yeah, you see him with some of that strength and bringing guys down to the ground. Gotta love it.
He was really good at center, actually. The one thing that I noted was that he was particularly interesting at the center position when he was working out there. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
He did a lot of work at center.
He's
really intriguing to me.
There's a clip of it right here at the center position. You can see it's after this one, I believe, but you can see that he's got the fundamentals down, at least on this rep. Very nice.
There's no doubt.
All right, guys, we are watching Senior Bowl tape, and those of you listening on the audio podcast version, make sure that if you want to get the full experience of Draft on Tap, check us out on Bears Barroom on our YouTube channel. Just type in Bears Barroom, and you will see Draft on Tap with the good-looking faces of Niel Stopczynski, Danny Shimon, and then there's me. I try to cut myself out as much as possible so not to scare the kids. All right, guys, I want to talk about guys that have got your attention after 3 days of watching practice tape. I know you guys have been trying to find time on your schedules to take a look. We were fortunate enough, and thanks to all of the great people at the Senior Bowl who have made those practice tapes available to us to watch. You guys have been looking at it. Who has caught your eye? Who do you want to share thoughts with? And let me start with you, Danny Shimon. Senior Bowl standouts at this point. And again, on Sunday, we're going to review the entire game and the entire week. So we're going to spend 2 hours probably talking about it. So we're just going to get a quick overview on some of these Senior Bowl standouts, starting with you, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about a couple of them here today with Robert Hainsey and Quinn, the kid from Wisconsin Whitewater. So, because I'm looking at tackles per se for the Bears, and I'm looking at certain areas of safety, linebackers. I have a ton of players, but I'm going to limit it to 3 here just because of time constraint and because I'm saving some for Sunday as well. So, Jalen Moore, tackle out of Western Michigan, 6'4", 311, 33 inch plus arms, almost 34 inch. He's a kid that has played well, in my opinion, in both on the left side and the right side. They tried him at guard a little bit, seemed a little bit out of place. I'm not sure why, but I think this is a guy that we always talked about, bringing in a young tackle. If you don't get one in the first or second round, bringing a guy that can come in and possibly compete at the right tackle. And Jalen Moore is a guy from Western Michigan. He's got the it's borderline in terms of his length, but I think he's got enough. He's shown enough to be able to handle either position. So I think this is a guy I'd bring in, make him my right tackle, eventually make him my right tackle. But we're talking about a kid that's going to come in and probably develop and eventually it could be right tackle and then move over to left side as well, because he's shown that the versatility. And again, we're talking the same thing with Morenz, where he doesn't seem like he's intimidated by the level of competition. He's taken well to coaching. So this is definitely a guy, and he showed some of that nastiness we talked about that we love in our linemen. So definitely a guy that I've got my eye on or caught my eye. The other guy's another tackle is James Hudson from Cincinnati. 6'4", 302 pounds, a little bit on the light side, but 33-inch arm. So his best position might be guard eventually, but they're playing him here at tackle at both left and right side. And again, another guy that shows that nasty demeanor he want. A guy that's got the athletic, quick feet to be able to kick slide and get to his set spot, be able to cut off the angle of the pass rusher. So, he's also done a very good job in terms of the one-on-ones. He's got a decent recovery speed, be able to, if he's going to the inside, the defender trying to do a counter move to his inside shoulder, he's got the ability to be able to adjust and recover and be able to hold off that interior, pass rush pressure. So he's another guy that is intrigued me. And this kid I tweeted about last night was Damar Hamlin, the safety out of Pittsburgh. Man, if you're looking for a safety that can come down and cover a slot receiver, Damar Hamlin has shown us that he could do that here at the Senior Bowl practices. I mean, this guy is going against guys that are super quick, whether it's Felton from USC or Kay Johnson from South Dakota State. He's in hip to hip, in phase with them down the field. Shows the instinct to be able to turn around and look for the football and then make a play on the ball. This is a guy that's really impressed me. He's a guy that in his career at Pittsburgh has shown the ability to be a kind of a ball hawking safety. He's got, I think, about 27 passes broken up. He's got 6 interceptions for his career. So this is a guy that definitely is around the football all the time. These last 2 practices have really impressed me in terms of his ability to cover out of the slot. So, if you're looking for a safety to come in and a young safety to pair with Eddie Jackson, we talked about, a young safety here to develop here and someone to groom to, eventually, start next to Eddie Jackson. This could be a guy to keep an eye on, guys.
Very good. Niel, who do you got, brother?
Again, Danny said it too. We talked about a lot of these offensive linemen like Trey Smith and Drake Jackson, Quinn Miners. You look at the other side of the trenches. I think Malik Herring, Boogie Basham, Dalen Hayes are 3 D linemen that really, I think, shot up my board a little bit. Not that, I thought badly of Boogie Basham, and we talked about him extensively in our defensive line show as a guy that maybe didn't fit. But I thought that after I watched him the past couple of days, he probably fits a little bit more than I thought he did as a defensive end and what they do defensively. And who knows what the hell that's even going to be anymore now that Chuck Pagano's gone. So, I mean, I think you really have to consider a lot of different things now when it comes to either 4-3 defensive ends or 3-4 outside linebackers as pass rushers. But I think, Malik Herring, Boogie Basham, and Dalen Hayes are guys that could probably fit in a few different molds in both of those schemes. Looking at, let's see here, Kay Johnson, that kid from South Dakota State, has made some unbelievable catches this week. As a potential slot guy coming in. I'm not sure how high that kid's going to get drafted yet. I haven't put together my wide receiver board exactly, but he's looked really good running routes, being quick, sinking his hips, really sharp routes he's run, and shown unbelievable hands and playmaking ability. He's really flashed a lot. You look at the DBs. Danny, you touched on Hamlin. The Cameron Bynum kid from Cal has like what I like to call spider qualities. He's a kid that he's almost got like multiple agility. He's in a bunch of different places seemingly at the same time. Made a few plays yesterday where it's almost like he's running the route better than the receiver. Really interesting kid and one I'm going to focus on a little bit more going forward once I start putting together my DB board. I haven't really got that far yet with all of my evaluations. I'm looking through my notes. How
about Dante Smith? How about Dante Smith from East Carolina? Have you seen him?
I'm not very good on Dante Smith. What's that?
He's coming out as a guard. He's played left tackle at East Carolina. They put him in a guard. And I think he's shown well both on the left or right guard as well. So I mean, there's a ton of players that I have a list here. I just wanted curious. You saw the same thing with him. He's a guy that was a little bit skinny, a little thin frame kid from East Carolina playing left tackle. Right. I think he opted out for this season, and then did he play this year? Because I thought okay. So then, but the thing with him is they moved him inside to guard, which I didn't think about. But he's handled himself pretty well, at least in the one-on-ones and especially in the team drills too. So that's a guy I'm keeping my eye on as well. Here is Deontay Smith from East Carolina.
Oh, hey, you know what? Okay, so he was going to play this year. What happened was he had a injury in his season opener and he shut it down for the year.
Okay,
that's what happened. He measured in. It's the interesting thing about him. He measured in at 6'5", 294. He was listed
plus inch arms.
Right, yeah, 35 and a quarter arms, 85 and an eighth wingspan, 10-inch hands. It has all the measurables in the world. You know what they had him on East Carolina's website?
What?
6'4", 280.
Wow, it's usually it's the reverse. It's usually top it on the websites.
Yeah, they actually shorted him on the media site. Like, how do you do that? But yeah, I think he's interesting from a length and athletic ability standpoint. Like, he has all kinds of athleticism. And, supposedly he reported under playing weight. He reported under supposedly in August at 275. And now he's up to 294. So that tells you everything about his work ethic, I think. I wrote down a kid can really move. He's got, great arm length, which, he measured in that as well. My concerns were that he can't. Watching him on tape, he doesn't do a good job of establishing position with his hands, anchoring, controlling defenders. I think he's a project and a half.
No, he's got ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, just if you just base your pick on length and athleticism and just say, hey, this kid's a lump of Play-Doh, let's make him into something, I could easily see him being a 7-round steal. But I'm not going to go ahead and probably, prioritize him as a draft pick. I might prioritize him as a guy we try to get on Sunday, right? A guy is not drafted free agent. I think that's where his best value is.
But I think potentially he gives you the option of playing tackle, especially with those measurables as well. He reminds me of a kid like last year I think it was from Connecticut, Matt Pert, that I think the Giants took in a 5th or 6th round. He's a developmental tackle, and then at the end of the year, he was starting at left tackle for them. It might have been because of injury, but yeah, he was out there, performing. So this is definitely a guy. If you do think about it, day 3, you bring him in as a guy you can probably put on your bench for a year or two, develop, get him stronger. But those measurables and athletic abilities is obvious, on tape and here at the Senior Bowl. So I think that's a guy that definitely and it has stood out. But the one thing I wanted to point out is I since last year I've been saying the Bears have to get speed and quickness on offense. And the one thing I've seen at the Senior Bowl, and I wonder if you guys agree, is we've seen some quick, fast receivers. Everyone's talking about Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan, and he's a guy that, if you remember, we had Jim Nagy on. He's a guy that I earmarked for the Bears in terms of a guy that can bring in some of that big play potential, along with Kadarius Toney. But there's guys like Shai Smith from South Carolina.
Yeah, we're looking at Eskridge right here on this play. Let me just have you comment on the moves this guy has.
It's the acceleration that he has at the top of his route when he stems the corner is just separates, create that separation. Look at that. It's like that guy's not even 10 yards within him. And when he's in phase with the corner's in phase with him and he's going vertical, he's got that acceleration, the burst to be able to just take it up over the top and then just create again, 3 to 4 or 5 yard distance between him and the cornerback. So he's been a guy that one-on-one these guys cannot cover so far in these practices.
Yeah, let me show you one other highlight when you say one-on-one. Take a look at this one here. This is just the kind of movement that you just want to see a Chicago Bears wide receiver have. I mean, at the line of scrimmage, who can guard this? Nobody. That's just unbelievable to me. He's really a special guy.
That's your boy Bynum, right from Cal.
Well, and yeah, it is. What is interesting is some of the people are saying that they're talking about him, Danny, the way scouts were talking about Terry McLaurin 2 years ago when you and I were at the draft, and we talked to him a couple of times. We saw him out in the field, and you and I walked away saying, holy cow, this guy is special. And lo and behold, he's played 2 seasons for the Washington football team and played at a very high level. This kid could be a Terry McLaurin type of surprise at the NFL draft.
Yeah, it just definitely showed that burst, that big play potential. And this is the kind of players we want to get on the Bears. And he doesn't have the size. He's about 5'8" and some change. So he's not a guy that's going to be up there go up and get it. Although he is competitive through the catch. So he's a guy that's not going to back down. He's a guy that jumps up and make the play on one of those like 50-50 balls. However, he was an ex-cornerback. He started his career as a cornerback, was flipped over to a receiver. So he's a guy that definitely has the potential. But I think now, I don't know if you guys think his stock is risen to the point where second round, maybe, maybe in that kind of area, it might be a little bit too rich for the Bears to go there at that point. Who knows? But there's plenty of other guys. We talked about Kate Johnson from South Dakota State. Fitzpatrick, this kid from Louisville, has impressed me in terms of his in and out of routes, his quickness. There's a ton of receivers, man, that really have caught my eye in terms of guys, playmakers that can come in and help the Bears. On the offensive skill set. And we didn't even talk about Tywan Wallace yet, who the kid from Oklahoma State, who's a hell of a receiver, who just a playmaker. I mean, last year he tore his ACL, and I was, he's coming back off the ACL, but still a guy. He doesn't have the quickness and the burst and the speed that some of these guys do, but definitely a guy that I love in terms of his competitiveness at the catch point, going through and above, defenders to make the catch. So, there's a ton of potential here, guys, in terms of the skill position and adding, speed and playmakers on offense here.
Somebody asked in the chat room of the kid from Coastal Carolina, the defensive end Jackson. Any thoughts on him?
Oh, Teron Jackson. He's a little twitchy. He's a guy that off the edge has showed the ability to come off the edge. Interesting though, they had him line up at defensive tackle, running some defensive tackles play. But he's definitely a guy that has shown some ability. I just don't know if he could stand him up in a 2-point stance. I don't think I've seen him yet. I haven't dived deep into his tape yet to see if he's had some background there, standing off and rushing from a 2-point stance as an outside linebacker though. Danny,
did you see any of that Manchester United tape? Apparently they lost to Sheffield United, and Niel is not happy about that.
I don't watch soccer.
About that, but I'm a big soccer guy. I'm a massive soccer guy. My Premier League team is Man United. They played like trash a couple days ago to Sheffield United, who had a really good year last year.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're probably going to get relegated this year. But ultimately, my main overseas team is Borussia Dortmund out of Germany.
I don't believe we asked, but that's okay.
Sounds like a beat. Niel, any final thoughts on Senior Bowl standouts?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and watch the rest of the tape from day 3 after this, and see who stands out from day 3. I think it's really interesting. If you look at from day 1 to, I saw the first half of day 3 today before we jumped on the show. I think it's really interesting every year when you look at how players perform, on day 1 as they progress through to day 2 and how they finish on day 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting to consider. Are guys just jittery? Are guys rusty? Are guys, pressing? And I think the most important thing that these guys can do is just be themselves and just let it loose and just go out there and play and just not think. Because I think a lot of times what happens is you get guys out there in day 1 that are trying to be too perfect or too, twitched up or too athletic or, whatever. Insert your favorite two. And they end up, looking, less of a player or less productive or, end up, starting off on the wrong foot and putting a bad taste in scouts' mouths. And that's something I look forward to kind of seeing on day 1 every year is who makes me want to take them off the board early or who makes me want to make them a first-round draft pick early, and then seeing how that changes as we go throughout the week. But I think it's been an interesting group. I mean, Kadarius Toney, I've heard has really been sort of a shining star of the week so far. And I mean, not that we don't know that already. He had a hell of a year, but the Roundtree, a kid from Missouri, the tailback has I'm told is really impressed. The Amari Rodgers kid from Clemson had a great year, and he's really impressing down there. Nas Dean from FSU is having a really good week. Has really turned some eyes as I've talked to people, and so has Darren Hall, the San Diego State DB. Is really impressed with his quickness. A couple of really good tight ends down there. The Gray kid from Duke, the McKitty kid from Georgia, who I think came from Florida State, if I'm not mistaken.
McKitty, McKitty is a kid that impressed me too, from Georgia, a tight end. Only had six receptions the whole season though. They just didn't throw the ball to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he's shown the ability to be able to stretch the zone or the seam and get down the field and make plays outside his frame as well. So it definitely has impressed me.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a lot to look forward to for Saturday, and really, like we're touching on earlier, if Mac Jones doesn't play, seeing those other two kids get out there and play really, for Jamie Newman's case for the first time all year, and then seeing Kellen Mond really with the spotlight on him, like the entire NFL spotlight. All 32 teams, 10 representatives from each team on him, see how he performs is going to be, I think, critical for both those guys, draft stock moving forward. And it's really to see like how the game plays out from a competitiveness standpoint, who stands out, who shows up to really go ahead and kick some ass or make a name for themselves or really just kind of tear the game up. I mean, a lot of times you know who's going to be a big time NFL dude or a big time dude at the next level, whichever level you're scouting, by how they show up and play during all-star competition. Do they bring their head with them? Are they going to just be a man amongst boys? Are they going to be an alpha? a lot of times those alpha dudes are the ones that end up, showing up at the next level as well. And it's fun to watch those guys go out and just do their alpha thing. But I mean, 1:30 Saturday, we have kickoff. It's going to be fun to watch, and I'm going to be glued in, locked in. I'm probably going to be tweeting up a storm. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love this week. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year, all year, every year. Normally, I'm down in Mobile, Alabama. I know normally under, normal circumstances, 3 of us would be down there in Mobile, Alabama. It's been bizarre watching this on a computer screen and on a TV screen, but, nonetheless, it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do it next year with you guys.
Quick question from Steven. He asks, is Mac Jones too high for is number 20 too high for Mac Jones? I think we said earlier in the show. Absolutely.
He might not even be there at 20.
Yeah, and that's what Superman 800 said.
I'll leave you with a couple more players if I can, Aldo.
Please
Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, left tackle. There was talk about maybe moving him to the guard. I think he's played well at left tackle, and I think I would leave him at left tackle. He might even be a first-round pick now. I'm not sure. We'll see about that. A couple linebackers. Chaz Surratt has looked natural and instinctive as a middle linebacker. He's a kid that I think if you pair him up with potentially with a guy like Roquan Smith, you have 2 athletic linebackers, guys can cover, and guys that are both instinctive in the middle of the field. I like that fit. Justin Hilliard from Ohio State, part-time starter, didn't play a lot. He impressed me when I watched him in the Big Ten championship game against Northwestern, and I think he's continued here as a guy that's it's about 227, 6 feet, barely 6'1", almost 6'1", I should say, 227. But he's got some thump to him, some physical presence to him. So he's another kid to keep an eye on at linebacker, because we know a linebacker is a major need for the Bears.
Mm-hmm. All right, fellas, I think we have done pretty good here. What are we? 2 hours and 49 minutes. It's not bad, huh? And you guys are going to go back and look at tape, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I got to watch today's practice tape. I haven't seen that yet.
All right. Well, get to work. We're going to say goodbye here, but remind you that we will be here Sunday with a special to talk about the Senior Bowl game and put everything in perspective. Talk about one last question before you guys go. How much value do you put? So, for instance, if a guy does well all week in practice and then goes out, doesn't really have a splash game in the actual game, does that concern you at all?
No. For me, that the practice is what I value the most. The game, it's nice if they go ahead and make plays in the game as well, but I mean, not necessarily.
Yeah, same here. I mean, the practice is great. Being able to see these guys, go against each other, compete live is great. And I mean, the practice is really for getting an idea of how guys, again, compete. Position specific, skill sets. And really, I mean, a lot of times too, like these all-star events, I always say like, combines and all-star stuff and everything else is more for confirmation, or they should be for affirmation, not confirmation, because based on the film you already watched, you should already have a pretty good idea of where these guys fall. Right. And really all these, all-star events is really for, getting these measurables, watching them live, getting them on the hoof, and just, seeing how they perform in these types of settings. See if you can pick up on some of the intangible things, like in between plays, their demeanor, their leadership, all those types of things. So it's like it's important, but it's not the end all be all. Certainly that the game is really just like a lot of fun to watch, to see guys compete, but the practice is probably more important than the game. The game film is more important than the practice.
There you go. All right. Excellent final words. And again, a reminder, we're here Sunday, 3 p.m. Central. Hopefully you can join us and let people know that we are here. And those of you who are watching the video version, hit and like and hit the little bell. It'll alert you when we're on with our live shows. And those of you listening in the audio podcast, if you listen on iTunes, please leave us a review. And we'd love a 4 or 5-star review. All right, guys. We'll talk to you in a couple of days. All right.
All right. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Great job.